tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast, I can roast, I can gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past and the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness, hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious, mysterious, because you are behind a fake exterior, inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior, get off of me, this ain't no humble brag, I want you to hear words, you can say them back, I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help, I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
I'll be incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some modestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable.
Thoughts in my head, a collage in this thread. I'll be great one day, going.
I think probably not, but we can probably do both.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, but I'm still saying that's a potential.
Of course. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
A cold evening.
It's cold
Snowing.
here.
Hello.
Good evening. Well, wait, let
And
me
it's
turn
probably
that down.
cold where you are too. I think it's cold all over.
Let's see. Our temperature right now is 11 degrees Fahrenheit.
Mm.
And yeah, we've had a lot of snow.
Yeah, well,
We've had a lot.
more snow than we usually
Normally do,
but
yeah.
others have a lot more.
Yes.
This is a heavy snow season for a lot of people. We've had some colds or whatever you want to call it, flu, so we might sound a little funny,
Yes.
but we feel a lot better than we did.
Yes, we do. I'm just sending a link to my brother. He was wondering if we're going to have a podcast tonight. He's in Florida.
Yeah.
He's nice and warm. Okay. Well, so we're in February, and this is February 19th. Okay.
Birthdays.
Birthday celebrations for February. Okay. Saturday, February 1st. Can you hear us okay? How's our sound? Can you let us know? I know we sound like we got colds, but we're getting over it. Okay, February 1st. Trudy Lynn, Daniel Bartels, and Norma Jean Bennett. Okay. Wild Wall said the sound is good. Thank you, Wild Wall. And let's see, February 5th, Joe's sister Marcella and our niece Erica. They were born on the same day, different year. And then Heather's daughter turned 6. The 8th, Del Real Love. It looks like she's in here. Yep, there she is. She's in the comments. She said 71 degrees here in sunny Southern California. Good for you. And happy birthday on the 8th. And also Emily Dilger was the 8th. The 10th, our daughter Liddy and Debbie Moore was on the 10th. The Vivian and Dinah Lost Dad is on the 10th. The 13th, Matt Malecki, Stacy DeYoung. I skipped the 11th. Our great niece was born. Ruby, no, not Ruby, I'm thinking of Ruby. Ava Rose was born on the 11th, and she was 8 pounds. And she's healthy and beautiful. So that was our nephew, Matt Malecki, his daughter, and Nicole, their baby. So Matt's birthday's the 13th, Stacy DeYoung, and we'll get to Ruby in a second. Also, birthdays on the 17th, Matthew Gullman, and on the 20th, tomorrow, is Mr. CIA. He's going to be 77, Mr. CIA. And Chris Parsons. The 21st, Tara Rice. The 22nd, Deanna June. And my brother Pete Panella. The 23rd, Tony Pidio will be 68. And Brian Brown on the 24th. The 27th, Vanessa Braychak and Colin Plummer. And the 29th, which is a leap year, Susan Carmack. So those are the birthdays. We've got a birthday song for all of you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I was just reading what Wild Wall said. Wild Wall said, Wednesday is our wings and pizza night. And I'm so full. I think I bordered on the verge of gluttony. Oh boy.
Keep trying.
Okay, we've got a few anniversaries in February. We have, on the February 4th was Severia and Bernard, was their 39th anniversary. And tonight is Ken and Dina, 42 years of
happy
anniversary. So that was it for the anniversary. So if you know of any birthdays or anniversaries, please let us know. And we will make sure we announce it. Okay? I just wanted to let Ken know we are on, in case he wants to join us. Okay. There we go. So the theme tonight is PIMOs, the benefits and risks of being PIMO.
Yes.
Oh, but before we get into that, I had some new people
that
want to make connections.
Yeah. Which is why we're doing what we're doing. It's all about you folks making connections.
So we have a notebook just for ExJWFriends, and usually people can contact us. We have the website, ExJWFriends.com, which Vern and Shauna advertise. Maybe they'll put the link up on the screen for us. We also get connected through our phone, 315-221-0130.
Yeah, maybe if we can put that on the screen.
Yep.
Vern, Shauna.
And our email, people connect with us on email, jandfgarino@gmail.com. And sometimes we just meet through other people. On Sunday, we got on a really nice, it was a TikTok live. We never went on a TikTok live. And that was, that was through Gen Z and Alberto.
That was very nice, yeah.
And you say their name, Diaz?
Diaz.
Gen Z and Alberto Diaz. And they have a TikTok, and they did a live.
It was nice. It was
and
very
their
good.
theme was no judging. We listen, no judging. So that was very good. got to meet a lot of people through there. Also on our website, we got to meet, she goes by Good Vibrations. I'm not sure if she's on yet, but she's in Chicago, and if there's anyone in the Chicago area, anywhere near there, we'd like to plan a meetup, because there are other people that we do know. Stefan is in the Chicago area, and Mark is in Chicago. So they would like to know if there's anyone else out there that would like to meet up.
Yeah, anywhere, not just in not just in Chicago, but around
The
Chicago,
area.
Illinois,
Yep.
in Illinois.
Yep. Then we have another person reached out to us through an email, and she lives in Victorville, California. We have her email address, and we sent her information to a few of our Southern California friends, like JP, or he also goes by Shaq. He's in Palmdale. Nadine's about a little over an hour away. And Keith is in Santa Barbara. That's 3 hours. That's quite a. And Karina is in Ventura. And we know Faded in San Diego is about 2.5 hours. And so that's where Steph is from. So if there's anything kind of like in the central of that, please let us know. Anywhere near Victorville, California, there's someone who would like to reach out to other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. And in the meantime, we connected a lot of folks with each other. And if you would like to be connected with anyone, let us know. Debbie Moore is now in a nursing home, so she's doing well. And when she's out of, well, actually it's the hospital. When she's out of the hospital, then she can go to extended care. What do they call it? After you go to the hospital, you go to assisted living.
Oh,
She's going to go to assisted living. And we have her address if anyone is interested. You can contact us, and we will give you Debbie Moore's information. Okay. So I think that's it for the meetups. There's a meetup, an online meetup this Sunday, the 23rd at 2 o'clock. The Liberati is putting it on. So if you want to be part of that online meetup, just go to the Liberati, join that group on Facebook, and join us at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard. Hello, Shauna or Bern.
It's actually me. I just want to butt into your meetups here because on our ExJWFriends Discord server, Ruby Quinn is hosting movies every Wednesday after the show now. So we've had a lot of fun watching movies there. So please join our Discord. We'll be putting the link up in the chat again, and just come find us thereafter. Thank you.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you, Shauna.
Nice.
Thank you. Okay, nice. So, going to talk about PIMO, or do you want to show the video about PIMOs?
The video about PIMO.
JT and Lady C. It's a 10-minute
Yeah,
video.
the video first.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Critical Thinkers put out a great video this week. Maybe you've seen it already. It's just a 10-minute video, but it'll get us into our discussion about PIMOs. And we would like anyone, please come on and tell us your experience about being PIMO.
Yeah, there's so many ones out there that are PIMO.
Yeah, you don't have to stay on. You don't have to put your video.
Experiences with it.
Yeah.
It's good to share.
Okay, here's a copyright disclaimer. Okay.
I need urgent help. I'm 17 years old, and I told my parents I don't want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses anymore. I didn't exactly plan to tell them, but I was backed into a corner, and I chose not to lie. I just couldn't take it anymore. But now I've dug myself into a massive hole. My dad is taking me to the elders next Wednesday. I already blew up at my parents. I had almost no counter arguments, and when I did, they just twisted them back on me. I need help knowing what the elders might say and how to respond. I decided to leave because I see how controlling this cult is. I need evidence before I go. Please direct me to some resources.
You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow. Have you ever felt like that? Backed into a corner with no way out. You know, many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses know that feeling all too well. We hear people say it all the time. I don't want to lie. I want to be honest. So they begin to express their true feelings. Now, I think this is wrong with the organization. I think that's wrong with the governing body. And they just continue on and on. And then they find themselves backed into a corner. And as this young person said, I have dug a hole. I need help. You know, many of you may have found yourself in a similar situation, in fact. Over the years, we have spoken to so many individuals, husbands and wives and families, torn apart. You may have a wife, for example, who may stop attending the meetings after waking up. For her, for example, her husband, he becomes concerned. In fact, he begins to pressure like, we need to talk to the elders. In fact, the circuit overseer is coming next week. I'd like to see if we can meet as a family with the circuit overseer. As a result, the tension in the family just builds, and unfortunately, marriages often collapse under that type of pressure. How about the workplace threat? You have a Jehovah's Witness who works for a brother. He finds out this is not the truth. He wakes up. What does he do? He starts missing meetings, and the suspicion around him begins to rise, and it becomes an issue where this brother now is facing the possibility of losing his job. This particular person finds his livelihood at risk. And of course, the biggest question they always want to ask is, well, where do you stand? Do you still believe this is the truth? That's what they want to know. And so this is the type of pressure that a person is put under, and his job is on the line. And of course, that brings us to the other issue of self-reporting. And that's the reason why the Jehovah's Witness wants to be honest. I got to let the brothers know exactly what I'm thinking. But in reality, you don't owe anyone an explanation if you're not ready to give one. And of course, this is how they maintain control over their members. But really, it's really ironic because the Watchtower has spent over 130 years covering up inconvenient truths and misleading its members. Many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, they struggle with feeling they have to explain themselves when they're questioned. Why can silence be a powerful tool? One of the biggest mistakes people make when they first wake up is talking too much and too soon. Did you know the Watchtower follows a very simple rule? If a person is unworthy of certain information, you have no obligation whatsoever to tell them. That's something that you need to learn. Before you meet with the elders, you got to understand their position. Elders and circuit overseers are nothing more than middle managers for the Watchtower Corporation. Just like the managers on your job who will often get you in meetings and say, speak your mind, speak freely, or say whatever you want to say. Well, that's a setup. Well, the same when you meet with the elders and the circuit overseers. They will use what you openly and honestly share with them against you. For example, Ray Franz gave an experience once of the governing body has sent a letter to a number of his key men, traveling overseers, branch overseers, city overseers. And they basically said, look, tell us about ourselves. Tell us how we're doing. Critique us, good, bad, indifference. Well, these men had been part of the organization for 20, 30 years. They felt good. They felt we can say exactly what we feel. The brothers want to know. And what happened? They shared exactly how they felt. And the words that they used were turned around and used against them. All of a sudden, they begin to look at them out the corner of their eye. This is just a clear example of why it's important to be strategic in what you share and with whom you share it with. This can help you not to have to add any additional pain than you already have. Now let's talk about why you should avoid arguments with Jehovah's Witnesses. You see, let's be real. You don't want to have an argument with a Jehovah's Witness. Why? Because you will never win. You see, they are not listening to understand what you have to say. Instead, they have been trained to defend the organization at all costs. Think about this. Every Jehovah's Witness is trained from day one, 10, 15, 20 years, for the day that someone will step to them and tell them the governing body is wrong. Their ear is so tuned in to what you're saying that they will pick up immediately. You're speaking against the organization. Well, how do we protect ourselves while we plan our exit out the door? Well, we're going to share just a few tips with you on how to protect yourself as you plan your exit. Number one, reach out to others in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. Sit back, take a deep breath, and look around all of those who have been down the same path that you're about to go down right now. Number two, take your time to process the information. You learn this is not the truth. It hits you like a ton of bricks. And just as it took time for you to digest it, think about how difficult it's going to be for others if you just drop all of this information on them. Number three, silence is power. Sometimes it's best to stay silent until you understand exactly what you're up against, because you want to protect your relationships that you hope to preserve. You see, many times a person only gets one shot. And for that reason, number four is one that I always recommend. It's called the breadcrumb. That is, just share a few crumbs with people. This gives you a chance to test the water. You can pull back. It gives you the opportunity to see, well, maybe I need not to say anything else. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to leave this right here. And so you will then know how far to push and how far to hold back. Because if you drop a whole lot of information on your family and friends, it typically doesn't work. And we have seen that. So try the breadcrumb approach sometime. And number five, weigh the consequences of what you're about to say to someone. Speaking out can cost you your job if you work for one of Jehovah's Witnesses. It can result in you being kicked out of your house if you are a young person. And if you are a married person, it can destroy your marriage. Number six, keep it as brief as possible if the elders call you. As so many people have shared with us over the years, they will oftentimes tell the brothers, thank you for thinking about us. We're doing okay. And if I need anything, I'll get back with you. Many times they want to meet with you. Well, if they meet with you, we recommend not doing that, because this is going to be a setup. They will be prepared to just question you to death. But there may be circumstances where, as a young person or as a spouse, you may find yourself not having an option of meeting with the elders or the circuit overseer. Once again, let them have their meeting unless you're prepared to go to battle. And unfortunately, most of the time, people are not prepared. They will outnumber you, they will run around you, and they will simply try to use every single thing that you say against you. So for many people, when they go to these meetings with the elders, they just let them have it. This is y'all meeting. I'm just here for the next few minutes. And they keep it moving. That's exactly what they do. They don't try to argue. They simply say, as one brother said, I had a lot of questions. I just had a lot of questions, and I guess I need to do more study and research. And they just kept it just like that, because they realize that they try to bring out magazines and try to point out the society did this, the Watchtower did this, the governing body did this. They realize that's a losing battle. And unless you are prepared, unless you're ready to do battle, we highly recommend don't even waste your time. Just let them have their meeting. You just happen to be there for a few minutes. That's all. The most important thing to do is keep this in mind. The Watchtower has lied for decades, and you owe them nothing. Take your time, protect yourself, and when you're ready, stand on your terms, not theirs. Let me ask you a question. Have you watched your life spiral after speaking too much? What would you do differently if you had a second chance? We'd love to hear your comments. Thanks for watching. If this helped you, click like, subscribe, and share it with someone. This has been JT, and I'll see you on the next one.
This program was sponsored by Critical.
There's some helpful things there. You know, PIMO, of course, is physically in but mentally out of the organization. In other words, the person goes to meetings, pretends to be a practicing Jehovah's Witness, but they're not wanting to at all. They're as good as left, but they're still there. Their goal at that point is to fool them and make them think that I'm still a member, I'm still here, so that they don't lose. So that they don't lose family or whatever other relationship they have that they benefit from. Now, everybody has a different purpose for being PIMO, and everybody plans on being PIMO for a different length of time. It's all different for everyone because there's all different people that are PIMO. Everyone has a different conscience, a different set of values, different circumstance. And what they go through is going to vary from person to person. But they're all going to face something one way or the other. Somebody's going to notice, oh, you don't seem the same, or you haven't been out in service, or whatever. They're going to notice something different. And you're going to respond to it somehow, even if it's to mumble, or say you have to go to the bathroom, or something. You're going to get away. Or whatever. You're going to do something. The question that who's that?
Oh, JT.
JT asked, he said, well, for the ones that have done it and are through being PIMO, what would they do differently? Maybe some of you can let us know what you would do differently. Might help others to know. The problem with PIMO basically is that you're not being truthful. That's all there is to it. Because you're pretending one thing, but you're really showing another. So you're not being truthful. I mean, you got reason. You're justifying a reason. Your reason to be false. You're being false to them. It's totally your business. But there's consequences to it. The thing you have to think about, and this is where the irony comes in, the bitter irony. We all entered that religion, organization, seeking the truth, to know the truth, to live the truth, to promote the truth. There you go.
I was higher than you.
That's okay.
There.
To promote the truth. But now you find yourself, we found ourselves in a position of figuring out a way to fool them and not live the truth to that organization. In other words, we weren't being truthful. We weren't being truthful because we felt now it isn't the truth because, well, they lied. So now it got us to lie, basically. It's like, oh, what a trick. That's a trick. Maybe it's part of the snare that Rutherford was talking about. Religion is a snare and a racket. Whatever the case, what's it like for a person under those circumstances? Well, what are their emotions like inside, internally? On the outside, they show one thing.
Mhm.
On the inside, they feel quite another. You've got to admit, feelings aren't the same as they used to be when we were in. I know for us it wasn't. Whereas at one point we felt gladness or security or whatever from being in. Now, or when we were PIMO for about a year, the emotions were so chaotic and confused and
We didn't know
distorted.
we didn't know what we were
We didn't know
doing
if
from
we're
day to
coming or
day.
going.
Terrible.
But we did it. Our reason for being PIMO was to see if we could salvage relationships of our 4 children. And even maybe any other ones that were in. But after a year, it didn't take too long actually to realize it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We couldn't continue the charade. People noticed, and frankly, I'm glad, because we didn't feel comfortable at all living that kind of a situation. See, Annie?
Hi, Annie.
How are you?
Before we go any further, could I just, because I forgot an anniversary, and I'm so sorry. On the let's see, on the 13th was Ruby and her husband's anniversary. This would be 11 years. They got married in 2014. So happy anniversary. And also, it was brought to our attention that Ruby's cousin, King Tony, her son's birthday is today on the 19th. So we wish him a happy birthday, and Ruby and her husband happy anniversary.
Yes.
Thanks. Sorry for missing that.
Yeah. Well, Annie, hello. What say you?
What do you have to say about PIMO, Annie?
How are you this evening?
Good. Better than we were.
We're able to speak.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It sounded like you really were under the weather for a while.
Yeah,
it
we
was
were.
true. We really were.
Oh,
Much better.
At least we got sick together. Well, first
well, there you go.
Started, and Fran faithfully
I followed.
I was going to say, it's hard for one to take care of the other when you're both sick, though.
I know.
Did
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, dear. I didn't catch all of JT's discussion. I think I got a little bit later, but I did catch the last part of it.
Mhm.
And yeah, he made some very, very good points as far as what you need to take into consideration if you're going to make an announcement, or make it known, I should say, what your
Mhm.
stand is and what to prepare for. And yeah, I'm not PIMO myself. I just faded, but yeah, man, the anxiety. I can only imagine the anxiety that someone would feel
True.
still going to the meetings and knowing it's not right.
Oh, yeah. No, it's true.
I couldn't do it myself. I just couldn't do it.
I know. You have to be very understanding for the ones that do.
I think it would really make me physically or mentally ill.
And it does.
Unfortunately,
It does.
that's the findings.
Yeah.
No matter in whatever circumstance, not just with Jehovah's Witnesses,
Mhm.
but any circumstance where you're
Yeah.
not living truthfully about a situation.
Right.
Well, yeah, Elaine felt the same way. Elaine from the Liberati, she texted us and she said, personally, I found it psychologically unhealthy to
Yeah.
be inauthentic and pretend to defend dynamics that had become so offensive to me, betraying myself, but we are all different. So, yes, it's true. But that was how she felt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will. admit that we've heard different ones gladly state that they said they got no problem. And it says, I don't believe any of it. But they know how to play a good game, and they don't mind. To them, that's just that's normal living.
Wow.
So everybody's different.
That's right.
Everybody's
That's right.
different.
Yeah.
So you have to be honest with yourselves.
Well, there's a lot of people who go to other churches and they don't go because they're so devoted to the doctrine and the teachings, but for them, it's a social thing.
Yeah.
So they have social and business contacts through the church. So I suppose if you can manage to adopt that kind of a mentality, you might be able to get through it because some people spend their whole life, in that.
The only difference, I mean, with a church, going to church, at least from what we know of churches or whatever, they're all different types of reactions and character and behavior that are expected at a church. You know, you're not expected to all be unified and everybody to be on the same page. Whereas with the witnesses, oh my goodness, if you don't all say the same things, and if you don't finish each other's sentences, and
That's true.
That's a good way of putting it.
it's just that. It's just that. And so you're going to have to do that and not be honest about it. Otherwise, they're going to see it. And in fact, even if let's say you're doing a good job, but they still see it.
Very, very hard to promote something you just don't believe in or you think is actually bad.
Yeah, that's how I felt. All of a sudden, it's like I couldn't go out in service. I couldn't, I just could not do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I could do it either. Of course, I'm not in the circumstance where I had to, so it's easy for me to sit here and say that. But if I was in a different circumstance because of having family in.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the warning is there. See, it's understandable what the attempt is. The attempt is to salvage relationships.
Right.
And this is where deeper thinking is needed. It's the thinking that you never planned on thinking. In other words, how many people who are in that situation really planned on being in that situation?
Right.
They didn't. Oh, no, not me. Oh, we'll never this and we'll never that. And our family this, and it'll never be that way. But then you find you are.
Yeah, we had a very sad situation. Valentine's Day is supposed to be a happy day for couples. Well, one of our friends who did disassociate just maybe a month ago, and he thought maybe his wife was kind of going to, accept that. He came home Friday on Valentine's Day, and the house was cleared out. All the furniture was gone, and he was devastated. He said, he was shocked. Those were his words. Even though, he kind of knew that she didn't like the idea that he disassociated. But, you've got the elders and you've got her parents. So between them, they can, finagle things.
Sure.
And, hey, we're going to come with a moving truck and we're going to get all your stuff.
And maybe you could be thinking, oh no, things are going pretty cool. She's acceptable or he's acceptable to it. Oh no, it's good. Well, at the same time, you may get the elders or people planning to unload your house and have the person just skip. You don't know. You don't know.
Reminds me a lot of that that brother, I don't know, a couple years ago. And he swore he was not going to allow his family to be broken up, and it was anyways. And he committed suicide.
Yes. Was that Michael?
Michael, yeah, I was trying to think of his first name. Yeah.
That was, when we were first waking up and we heard about that, we go, oh, that's terrible. It's horrible.
So I'm hoping this brother, can not go that route.
Hello, Apostle Dude.
Hey, can you hear me
Oh,
well?
can hear you. Yes. How are you?
Good, I'm great. Great subject again.
Yeah.
And as JT made it clear, I mean, when you wake up, you kind of get slapped with the reality that it's the right thing to do because you start to sense those circumstances. And I know all about them. I was on with Constance and Dick Borgie a couple weeks ago, and I've made the point about how they were talking about some televangelists and the same things going on now in the watch hour. And I made the point that your support is essential for their power. So when you're sitting there, you have to continue, but they know what they're doing. And so once you flip the script and you become a suspect, they're going to use abuse, greater abuse than you've already gotten against you.
Yeah.
So that you'd have to calculate that. Now, as some may or may not know, I'm not just fellowship, but I'm not physically in. I don't go. I do more research about them than with them.
Mhm.
So, and the reason for that is there is a suicide risk to me coming out. You know, there's some people that would be really trouble because it would force an issue into their lap that I don't think they're ready for. Because I really do agree with what JT said. And what we really all know is that they are a nasty mafia religion. I mean, it's not a safe thing to break away from, but you can't go along with. I mean, once you know as much as I'd say a tenth of what I now know. I mean, I'm not staying around, but sometimes people that are older, like we are, Joe Fran and myself, you know, it makes it very disappointing that you maybe grinded out decades of your life in this thing, but still the truth is what it is, and it's not them. So whatever it is, I'm not sure yet, but it's not them.
Yeah. It puts us in a position where we've never been before. So to say, you know, I'm doing the right thing. You know, you don't know you're doing the right thing. You don't know. You just have to be kind of wary and watchful.
And what he said is true too. Take your time.
Yeah.
Get more grounded in the facts so that you're not, you know, because they'll come over. I had a brother come over. I've had elders come over, you know, they come to my house 3 or 4 times. And I just look at them like, hey, don't worry. Nothing's on you. You know, you're the group overseer, quote unquote. And they're putting pressure on you to contact me. So just don't worry. You came over, you contact me. I'm just fine. And they can't handle that. The last time he was over, he said, okay, John, you know, but at the end of the day, how is your relationship with Jehovah? I like, you know, I just felt like saying, I can tell you a lot of stuff about the so-called Jehovah you can't even handle. So, but I didn't respond. I just don't give them anything. Like JT said, it's true. It's not going to go anywhere. They are locked down, man. They're not gonna give up their power. Their little false, you know, their little what. Years ago, my son got into punk rock stuff. My stepson, and he says they use this term in the Bay Area. He's a poser, and so that's kind of what the elders are.
Yeah, I had an elder contact me at the beginning of the year. A nice brother. I've always had a lot of regard for him. And said he'd been calling a number that he thought was my home phone, which I don't have anymore, and leaving messages. And I said, well, I hope they enjoyed all your messages, whoever's got my old number. But then he asked me if I was going to be home the next day, and thought we could come by and see you. And so I said, well, you know, I really appreciate your interest in me. I really do. But I said, I think I'm going to say no. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, okay, bye.
Wow.
I think he was so stunned that I would actually say no to him.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he didn't expect that.
Yeah.
There's no way I was going to go there.
No. You know,
And
so
I
many.
do.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do think that they are tapering down a little bit in terms of their aggression to quote unquote inactive ones because it's not working. You know, they can put anything they want on the broadcast about, oh, they're all flooding back in because of the changes. Why would they do? Why would they do that? I mean, that's all the more reason to suspect that this thing isn't the truth. But so I think they've tapered it down. But at that same time, you never know when it happens, when the wire gets tripped. And I will say this: they better not mess with me. Because it will hurt my family. And when that happens already more than it has, I'm telling you, man, I got nothing better to do in my life. But you know, as it is, I can't stand by silently and not join into these forums as much as I have time for.
Yeah, it's
You know, I got nuclear energy for that kind of fight if they do anything to hurt my family again.
you know, it's an unfolding agenda, and we're learning, and we've got a lot to find out. We really do, about ourselves and about the situation.
Hi, Keith.
Hi,
Keith.
Fran. Hi, Joe.
Hello, you're biking somewhere?
No, I'm gonna sit down. I was on my way. I didn't realize I'd be in the show so quick, so I thought I was
That's
almost home. But yeah,
Oh, okay. Good to see you.
yeah, good to see you. What's the topic? What are you guys talking about?
PIMO's, the benefits and the risks.
Okay, so yeah, it's great. It's also not great.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
know.
I miss my mom and my dad, and you know, I don't know, family.
Yeah, I know.
But also, I'm in college and I'm getting a job, and so that's also good. So.
Wow, good for you.
And I have these wonderful people named Joe and Fran and a whole bunch of other XJW community people. So
That's
kind of
right.
makes up for it. I got a pagan birthday card from you guys, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yes, a musical one.
Yeah. I opened it up. Whenever I'm sad, I'm like, happy birthday to me.
Damn
We're
So
happy. We're happy for you.
yeah. I don't feel guilty about lots of stuff I used to feel guilty about. And I tell people I'm like an Amish girl wearing a red dress for the first time. So just be patient.
It's gonna
Yeah.
take. It'll take time to get used to it.
It does. It takes time. And
Look,
yeah. And you know what? If people don't really love you,
Yep.
they don't. And I know that they're brainwashed but there's still a choice involved. And if you're a trusted family member and you're telling them that there's like this weird group of men in New York that are taking advantage of them and they don't believe you, well, I guess that's kind of on them. But
what if, for example,
yes, sir.
just to think of the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say a child,
Yeah.
a young person
Mm-hmm.
has puppy.
A young one.
Yeah, a puppy love for someone, and
Yes.
that other person, they don't have any feelings for them at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my goodness, my heart is sick because they don't love me.
Yeah.
I I love them, but I hope they love me. I want their
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
I want their love.
Can't force that kind of thing.
Yes, so Jane Spitfire,
Yeah.
I'll put this question out to all of you. What can you do to wake them up?
Well, the suggestion has been made. I think it was maybe it was Jack from Fear to Freedom. I think it was his suggestion. I can't remember for sure. but anyway, is to, oh no, I'm sorry. I think it was Stephen Hansen. He was talking about how to help people get on cults. That's what it was. And he said to just ask them questions. Questions like, how do you feel about this or that? And just leave it kind of hanging there, open-ended question. And just kind of, say, I really would like your opinion. I really value your opinion on this or that. And then just let it hang there and see what kind of a response you get. And if they kind of bite, then ask another question. Well, what do you think about this? Even some of the changes, um,
Yeah.
Well, look. So let's say you have that circumstance where there's a communication takes place between the people. Some of us don't have that communication between each other. So let's say a wife in, husband out, they live together. How long is it going to take for the one who's being questioned, for the one to figure out that, I you don't I don't think you want to be in the truth anymore. It's like, and let's, in other words, you're not going to wake up. In fact, if anything, now it's the other way around, and where you have to wonder how long is it going to take for the ex to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're playing chess.
Yeah.
You're really playing chess, and you must be patient and calculate your words and your moves. And that's a good idea Annie brought up about questions, but don't bundle them together.
Right.
Because then if you go, oh, wait a minute, you are an apostate. It's like, well, for me, they know for sure I'm inactive. And they suspect me massively, but they don't want to play. So, and I'm happy for that, because it's going to be trouble for them as much as me.
They don't want trouble.
And I don't really think anyone's going to wake up until they're ready, no matter how much you
That's
want
right.
them to.
There's a fear level. They have to overcome their fear
Yeah.
to become inquisitive about the thoughts that you dripped on them over time.
Can I ask? I've got to ask the obvious question. Why do you think they should wake up? Why do you assume that they could wake up or should wake up? Why? Just because I did, Joe. Just because you did, Joe, it doesn't mean your children are going to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think they should?
Because trouble's coming.
Because I want them to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want them to.
Yeah.
Okay, I want them to. Yeah. But they want me to remain loyal.
I think people are eventually going to have to wake up with the internet and with all of the activists. There will be no choice, because everybody knows by this time that, at least the beards thing and everything, they're grasping at straws. So at some point these guys are going to make a real fool of themselves. Not that they already haven't, but the internet is becoming such a forum for exposing them, that they're inevitably going to have to come to terms with it, and people are going to leave reluctantly, because it's kind of like a Stockholm syndrome for a lot of people. At least it was for me. It's all I ever knew, so it's kind of like this safe kind of place, and you know how it works, and you are afraid of Armageddon, and you are afraid of the world.
We're talking about human nature and the differences.
Yeah, we like comfort, we like routine, we like our safe. We like that.
Yeah.
And
well, there's
even if it's irrational and it doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's also the issue of humility and pride too. What if a person is just way too proud to ever admit it? I'll never admit it. I know it's not the truth, but I'll never admit it.
Well, you know,
Sorry.
no,
I
it's all
think
right.
if the
Go ahead.
organization ever comes under attack in this country, like it has in other countries where it is publicized, the court scene is seen by the public, and they listen to the brothers, they listen to their lawyers and the ridiculous things that they say, and if they get to hear people speak who've been abused, for example, I think that might have a pretty good
Oh,
effect.
hey, what? Okay, what if
I mean,
we?
that's already happening. That's already happening in Norway, where the judges are seeing that these guys are just complete.
But that's what I mean. If in this country,
Absolutely, that could
if,
happen here too.
if that happens, I mean, that's kind of what we want for the letter writing campaign, right? Hopefully,
Yeah, I'd do it.
and that might open people's minds. I mean, they might, because they look so bad in court. They make themselves look so bad.
Yeah.
If there could be a public display of this of them in this country, then maybe it would shock a lot of people what they would actually see.
They risked looking that bad, and believe me, that Norway thing is bad.
Yeah.
Because of money. That's all. Wait till everybody puts 2 and 2 together. Some people will put 2 and 2 together. The changes they made about disfellowshipping and saying hello, and you know, the elders visiting and welcome you back and all this stuff. That's all about Norway. and then Toni Morris is put off the scene shortly after he says on video, "We're not going to give in to our policy." Boom.
Right.
Yes, we are, say the lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the 2 and 2 put together. I mean, it's there, but there's been a lot of other things that have happened like that. You know, the faithful and discreet slave is now the governing body only when they meet together, because some anointed sister in Australia was approached with a lawsuit as a member of the faithful and discreet slave before they changed the teaching. People don't know that. I mean, they have every move they're making is to protect their wealth and power.
Did you say a woman was part of the faithful and discreet slave?
Yeah, an old sister was an anointed sister. The teaching is, therefore, she's part of the faithful and discreet slave, until they changed the teaching after this court, where they Stephen Unthank is involved in that.
Okay.
He's supposed to go possibly to the convention in August.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to call it that, Joe.
Oh, you mean the gigantic meetup?
Yeah, the great Massachusetts meetup.
There you go.
That's Rick's excellent meetup.
All right.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, Tewksbury, Mass. Joe and I will be there, and Annie, I think you're planning on it. I don't know about
Thank you for reminding me.
Yep, and it's going to be a 3-day gigantic meetup of all the apostates, PIMOs, interested ones, even if you were never a Jehovah's Witness. It's going to be at the Hilton in Tewksbury, Mass. August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Thank you, because I forgot to mention that.
You know, it'd be great if Winston Gilling from Watchtower Examination came. That guy's he's devastating.
Yeah. Where he's in Africa?
He's in Jamaica.
Oh, Jamaica.
Yeah.
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 I like that guy.
Yep.
Well, he's Seventh Day Adventist, but he doesn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Wild Wall said still alive in 2025, so that will be 50 years since
1975.
1975.
Yep.
That's when Joe and I met in 1975. We didn't know anything about, Armageddon was coming.
Isn't that handy?
We were not Jehovah's Witnesses. Didn't know anything about them. Oh dear.
Well,
Apostate, were you a witness during that time?
yes, I was. I was there. Oh, yes. It was a major influence in my wife and myself. Although my wife told her Bible study she said, come on, the Bible says no man knows the day or the hour. And the Bible study, she was nice, she kind of went to the middle ground. But when they did that video just a few years ago, and they had that one brother recalling back, he was reminiscing how I remember what I learned at the meetings and in the Bible, that no man knows the day or the hour. And I'm here to tell you that was total gaslighting. There were circuit overseers. Everybody was fired up about that, and the numbers reflected it. People were moving in to save including me. I mean, I was looking at it like, what if they're right? So I kind of forced a lot of, and I was young, so I'll say that. But I take responsibility. I was foolish.
Yeah, well,
I'm born. Sorry, go ahead, Annie. Go ahead.
Yeah, and another point to make, both my wife and myself were the classic profile of having survived recent traumatic events in our lives. It's one of the reasons I took to her, because I said, yeah, we got a lot in common. So, and look at this, how I'm not going to have trouble with this woman. She's got to be submissive, which is nonsense. I'm not that type of guy, but that was the teaching.
Right.
Are you guys gonna go, Joe and Fran, to the 25 Alive thing?
Oh, yes. We'll be there.
Yeah.
Are you coming, Keith?
I'm gonna try. I think I can do it. It's in Chicago, right?
No.
No.
Boston.
Near Boston.
Oh, it's in Boston.
Yes, so you can.
I thought it was supposed to be in Chicago for a little bit.
No.
Okay.
Maybe originally he wasn't sure where he was going to have it.
All right.
But he lives in Tewksbury, so it's easier for him and to make all the arrangements. But who was the other one? What does he go by? Mr. Oh, the one from.
So back to Annie's point on 75. Here's a quick story. So Larry, I'm in the congregation where Larry Graham comes in, and Larry, I don't think he's quite baptized yet. He wasn't baptized, but I gotta get my camera on sometime and show you his album covers, because that's an interesting part. But in any case, so he had a local gig at what used to be in the Peninsula Circle Star Theater, where they had, it was an interesting venue, kind of small, but he was playing a gig there as a warm-up act for the Temptations.
Wow.
So that was on a Saturday night, I think, and then next day, one of the Temptations is sitting right behind me. And so the Watchtower is going through, and I think the conductor asked the secondary question is, how soon can we expect Jehovah to intervene in man's affairs? And the Temptation guy, who I don't think he was baptized brother or anything, he raised his hand and he said, 1975? And everybody cringed a little bit, because not supposed to say that exactly, but... And so, I mean, if you didn't think it was real, that's a good example. And I got a million of them. The circuit overseer, every time he came by, he was ridiculous. And then about 6 months after the October 75 passed through, he was given a talk. And I'd always tell the car groups about this. I wasn't trying to cause trouble, but it's true. And he was up there doing a part, and he said... And he was getting, they get into things, the circuit overseer. They're trying to deal with local needs they observe. And he goes, some of you brothers are saying you brothers have gone too far talking about the end of this system. Whoa. That's exactly what he did. As soon as he got that too far talking about the end of this system, he went, whoa, as if you're challenging our authority. Don't get to do that. It was funny. I mean, my wife and I never forgot that. Yeah. So the 75 thing was big. It was just flat out big. It was as big as that guy Harold camping there in the Bay Area, San Francisco. He had posters all over the area May 20-something, 2011. Because I was doing route work in that area. I'd see those posters all over the place. And then after it happened, the Awake magazine comes out and says, well, what does it mean when people go out of their way? As if they didn't do it. It was so amazing. So they had a quote by him.
What amazes me is the people who actually were there and lived through it don't even remember how it went down. I mean,
That's-
how many Kingdom Ministries did we have where they were commending people who quit their lucrative jobs, sold their beautiful
Sold their
homes,
homes.
and don't go to college. You won't even finish college, or if you do, you won't have time to use the education that you've received. So this is a time to be pioneering, and people lived through that and heard it. And you would think that they weren't there at all, because they've listened to the gobbledygook of what's come out of the governing body's mouth about, how people ran ahead, people got overly enthusiastic,
Right.
and blah blah blah. And I'm
People
going,
were
wait a minute,
serving for a day. Yeah.
you were there. How can you believe that? You were there.
Cognitive dissonance.
I remember every bit of it. But
So I mean, I have
Oh,
to
yeah.
look at anybody listening who wasn't a part of it, and here's the situation. Well, they say, well, you were scammed. You were just hoodwinked. You got
Oh, I
taken.
said that.
You got taken.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you know what the thing I do, Joe, and I know we talked, you got the same thing. I accept responsibility for being scammed. Okay. At the same time, I'm also responsible for not getting scammed anymore.
Gotcha.
So, I'm done now. What is the Who song? We won't get fooled again.
Yeah.
And we warn people.
Yeah.
We make sure that others don't get fooled.
Meet
don't
the
know.
new governing body, same as the old governing body.
Hey, Keith,
As the song goes.
I don't know if Keith was born in 1975.
My mom and dad got baptized, and then they moved to Belize and were missionaries because
Oh,
the end
wow.
was coming right before 75.
Ah,
So my mom and dad remember the stay alive till 75 nonsense.
wow.
But wasn't it like 81 or something? They had the big purge, or the early 80s
Mm-hmm.
in Bethel.
Yeah, I was there for that too.
When
Oh,
the
yeah.
Frans left.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had that Time magazine article and all that.
It was all before us. We came in 1985. Never did they mention anything
We didn't
about.
hear anything.
They
about
never
it.
mentioned anything about 75. Never heard about.
I never knew about that 75 until after we left.
Yeah.
Well,
and we came in
it's
85.
it wasn't their fault. It was just some people were thinking that. It's not
Yeah,
nothing to
they
do with
said.
anything that good old Freddie Franz might have said.
So
I love
after
that
Ray
song.
Franz was actually basically they put him out as a resignation. Then they disfellowshipped him later. So in any case, there were some other people who they used to study some things in there. And Ray Franz was the main guy into the aid book, a lot of the aid book. Also the book, the letter about James, the book of James, the letter of James.
That was Dunlop.
I have all
Dunlop
that
wrote
stuff.
that.
So Uncle Fred did a kind of a national tour, and I saw him give a talk afterward, and he cobbled together a bunch of Old Testament characters to say that this isn't surprising that in these days that there would be rebellion among Jehovah's elite or whatever. That was at the Oakland Auditorium. I'll never forget, it was packed out.
I still remember the Watchtower articles when I was like 5 or 6, and they had all those Greater Jonadabs and Greater Moses and all these weird doctrines. And all you hear now is this. I mean, I don't even know what it's so simple now. It's like they don't even have any kind of like so-called deep deep things to teach anybody, but
No.
I was sitting
And
through
that gets
33
that gets
paragraphs
into
of nonsense as like a 4-year-old going, what in the world is this?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Keith. I'm sorry,
No,
but I
no,
was saying
it's an
that
incredible.
they had the typical and anti-typical patterns. That's all about Fred doing that. Fred Franz wrote a lot of stuff, and what
Crazy.
gets you is you're reading these books, and he would get into stuff about the purple thread on the high priest's robe and how the color purple about it meant this and meant that, and typically and then anti-typically, and you read that stuff and you go, wow, if they know that stuff, man, they must really have God, you know. And it's just,
It's called Baffle Them with BS.
oh yeah, bamboozled.
Yeah.
And those books are out of it now, man. They don't want you reading those books. But I got a book in mint condition when I helped my mother-in-law move. She had to move in with us. She had this chest in the basement, so I got all the garbage out of it. And right there on the bottom, I have a mint condition with the banned pages of the book, The Finished Mystery.
Oh wow.
So I got all the evidence there. I mean, you read that book and go, how in the heck could God, Christ, pick
Yeah.
these people for this nonsense? So I brought the book because I innocently, when I went through a fade period and then the early twos, and this brother's conducting this book study near the house we moved into. And so I'm trying to pick it up a little bit, get back into it. And this is post me being dismissed as an elder. That's all a long story and everything. But anyway, so I'm going to a few book studies and I said, well, I'm going to bring this book because they show it on the videos and everything. And so I bring the book and friends are gathering around. Oh, look at John. Excuse me, Pasta Dude has this finished mystery book. And then I look up and the elder who was in Bethel for 11 years is glaring at me. And I'm like going, what's the problem? I mean, you know, it's the famous book. You know, it brought everybody into the truth, you know.
Yeah.
So that's a red flag, though. I missed a million of them.
Well, now that they're basically in front of the world with their televangelist weirdness, they're just real targets because it's just exposing them more. I don't know how long it's going to take, but you know, there's going to be a kind of a Jonestownish moment where they're going to embarrass themselves so much that it's just going to be an exodus. Or that's already happening. There's so many PIMOs. I have friends that are in there.
I agree.
What if they're smart enough to know how to convert it over so that it's nothing
Liars.
that you were ever familiar with, and it makes it easy for the ones who are remaining to stay.
Well,
For
they're
example,
doing that, yeah.
what they're doing, nobody's going door to door anymore.
No,
If they do, they're stupid.
there's no door to door.
No.
I don't see
They're
anybody
in
out.
danger.
Right, exactly. So, but what they're doing, they're building Ramapo, which is basically Hollywood East.
Yeah.
Now, why would they invest in Hollywood? Well, that's Hollywood and stars and idol worship and media like that has been the most successful business in the world. And whereas they relied on preaching before as a religion, now they can easily shift over to a worldwide media that's like Hollywood.
Oh,
They're in
like,
position for that.
yeah, it's not JW, no, excuse me, it's not Watchtower
Oh,
Bible
wow.
Tract Society. Now it's Watchtower Real Estate Company.
Yeah, that's the other side of it.
So this was sent to us by Mr. CIA, and it talked about the new assembly hall planned. And this was back last year, and they've got it built. They're pretty much ready to open it up this summer. But this is in, well, I won't tell the area because that might give it away too much. But anyway, Yeah, it's Watchtower Real Estate Company. And like Joe said, Hollywood West, Hollywood
They know
East,
what they're doing.
Hollywood
They know
East.
they're so aligned with it already, and they know how to they know how to handle people, whereby they know how to shift the kind of activities so that the ones who are remaining will find it acceptable. It's not what we were used to. It's not
Like,
what we were used to at all.
I
But
mean, I would say at least a lot of people remember that having a beard was this incredible infraction upon
now
God's will.
now they're going to let women have beards, for
It-
God's sake.
but the changes are happening so fast that people are going to have to acknowledge that what they used to believe was nonsense. That, I don't know. It seems to me that they're at a breaking point, especially with the internet. I don't know, but all it has, if Norway is a precedent for other European countries, and then maybe another country goes the way that Norway's going, and then another one does, that's going to be a big kind of a domino effect. I'm hoping for that, because it's
I think religion in total is going to take a hit like that, Keith.
so you're
Not
saying that Babylon the Great is going to fall.
I think I don't know what that means. I really
Nor
don't.
do I.
But I do know they're they're one of the big ones, and when big ones are around each other, they eat each other. They don't like to have to vie with each other.
It's just that they have a ton of internal dissent right now. They do.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's no way around that. There are people that are truly ticked off at them that are in there and want to leave and can't. Or they
Yeah.
they could, but the price would be very high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something's going to give.
I
Can we
hope.
all say hello to Wild Wall? He's patiently waiting.
Yeah. Wow.
Hi, Wild Wall.
Guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, say something.
Yeah.
Get loud.
Hey, I wasn't going to get on tonight. I was going to take a break, but when Apostle Dude said that about 1975, him and Annie, we lived through this. And I've got to tell you this. I was born in 1967. So you can assume from that, I was in second grade in 75. And I love dissecting that book, Babylon the Great Has Fallen, God's Kingdom Rules, because it had the wild beast and the scarlet, the image of the beast, the scarlet beast. I was fascinated. So they always wondered why, as such a kid, that I had such a high reading level. But I told them it was stuff like that. I was always interested in mythology, the Greek gods, Roman stuff like this. So naturally, I'm going to be attracted to something like that the witnesses put out. So as a young kid, when they're telling us about 1975, I remember being in second grade, looking around at all these other little kids, thinking they're all going to die just because their parents won't accept the truth. And I tell you, that caused me a lot of sleepless nights and trauma, because there was some nice young boys and girls, and I would look at them. It was cruelty to me as well as others. But you had to live through that to even know what was going on. But I wanted to share this real quick. If anybody says, "Oh, they didn't say that," I want to quote from their Awake 1969 magazine. It's the May issue, but listen how it words this. It leaves no room for doubt. It don't say "we think." It says all the evidence points. Listen at this. This is a quote from 1969. It says, if you are a young person, you also need to face the fact that you will never grow old in this present system of things. Why not? Because all the evidence and fulfillment of Bible prophecy indicates that this corrupt system is due to end in a few years. Of the generation that observed the beginning of the last days in 1914, Jesus foretold this generation will by no means pass away until all these things occur. Matthew 24:34. Therefore, as a young person, you will never fulfill any career that this system offers. If you are in high school and thinking about a college education, it means at least 4, perhaps even 6 or 8 more years to graduate into a specialized career. But where will this system of things be by that time? It will be well on the way towards its finish, if not actually gone. Now, think about this. That was written in 1969, and it said, where will this system be in 6 to 8 years? Tally up from 69 when it was written, 1975. Gee, 6 years, right? Is my math correct? So do you
Mhm.
see how weaselly they get around that? But everything pointed to 75. They'll say, "Oh, we never." I can show you old Kino Ministries from back then. Well, it wasn't called Kino Ministries. What was it, guys? Before they renamed it, they renamed everything.
It was a kingdom ministry, wasn't it?
The
I think,
informant.
Kingdom Service.
yeah,
I
Kingdom
think it might
Service.
have
I
been.
think.
Oh, Kingdom Service.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's one or the other. It's been so long since I've been out. But you know how they rename stuff. The Awake didn't used to be the Awake, and Watchtower was changed for, like Joe's brought out many times. It used to be Zion's Watchtower. But anyhow, and everybody's upset because Trump's renaming the Gulf of Mexico or America. I'm telling you, if you only knew what the Watchtower has renamed, we'd all be upset just at that. To try to, what they do is they try to cause confusion and to say they didn't say nothing by renaming or rebranding it. But you read that article. Don't take my word for it. That's why I wanted to tell you which one to go look at, and then tally up where 6 or 8 years would put you from 1969. So even though I was only 2 years old in 1969, by the time I was in school, that was the one they kept throwing up to me. Oh, don't worry about getting, shooting for college later on. You're too young. We're going to be in the new system. So I threw all my education out the door, any of my future prospects, because of that. And they wonder why some of us are a little irate now. It's like, well, we could be a little better off either financially or even emotionally, just because we wouldn't have to put up with the trauma I did about looking around at all these other little kids that are
Yeah.
simply going to die just because. And what about you guys that are about my age? Did y'all have to go through all that nonsense about, well, you've got individual responsibility, then you've got family responsibility, that is their responsibility to teach their kids about Jehovah and the truth, and then you've got community responsibility if the community don't accept it. And
Yeah.
that's the way they try to pull it on me about why these kids are going to be destroyed, because their family and their community, they come together and accept the truth. And I'm like, wow, you talk about mental cruelty to a kid. That was it to me.
Right, and then they'll say, "How dare Christendom teach that God will put people in a fiery hell?" And at the same time, they're teaching that He's going to kill innocent babies who are enemies of God. Come on, man.
When I was in school, I told one of my friends that he wasn't going to live till he was 30 years old, probably. I was like 11.
Wow.
So, yeah, they really teach kids to hate, almost like have prejudice. Well, you do. You have a prejudiced view where there's an us and then them, and fire's going to come down from heaven and destroy everybody that's not wearing suits and ties and dresses and stuff.
You
You know
probably
it.
weren't popular, Keith. I can't imagine you being very popular in school.
It was terrible. I mean, they teach you to be a self-righteous, scared little. I didn't want anybody to die, but I was like, I was very like preachy. I was like a little kid.
I know.
It's
Well, you
terrible.
thought you were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to
You know what?
say hello to Apostobate?
Hey,
Hi, Linda.
Hey,
Hello.
Linda.
It's good to be here with all these 1975 survivors. Yes. We survived 1975. And you know,
The ghosts
what
of
Wildwall
75.
was talking about, what he was quoting, if you noticed, the organization called it a prophecy. Okay. And today they'll call it a failed prediction, as if it wasn't. And the fact is the organization calls themselves a prophet-like organization. And what Wildwall was reading was speaking of this being fulfilled prophecy, fulfilled Bible prophecy, right?
Do you
Yep.
remember the Watchtower? Do you remember the Watchtower article? I think the title of it is "They Shall Know a Prophet Was Among Them."
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that one? And that was
Yeah.
Is that
about.
the one with the boat attacking?
I don't remember a picture,
Okay.
but I remember the title, and of course, it was about at Armageddon, that before people died, they would have to recognize that they had been told that we had gone to their door and we had warned them, and they would have to recognize that a prophet had been among them and informed them. Yeah.
Wow.
So they have called themselves a prophet.
Okay.
And you know the
You're
thing that
talking about
bothered me, you're talking about looking around at your classmates. The thing that always bothered me was the number of people who we were told were going to die. Remember, and then remember Revelation talks about the blood being as high as the horses' bridles and things of that nature. And as a kid, the thing that I feared the most, and I would be brought to tears, I didn't want to, I could picture myself stepping over dead bodies and just seeing the death stare in everybody's eyes.
Mhm.
And I couldn't handle that psychologically. I did not ever want to see that, the death stare.
Paradise
You know,
showed
Well,
people
Toni
getting
Morris.
with that death stare.
yeah.
Toni Morris gave that talk, and he said he was talking about his war experience, and he goes, "You're going to see a lot of death, a lot of death."
You know,
Like,
let's think about something here. What you're describing, what they did is they did like the U.S. Army does to recruits. They
Correct.
brutalize. They brutalize them because they expect them to go brutalize others. That's why they brutalize them. Well, you and our children were brutalized. They tried to brutalize us. Some have become, I really mean this, they've become brutal. They're willing to do things that they wouldn't have been willing to do before. They were brutalized. You ones here, we resisted it. We resisted that training. We said, no, we're not going to take that. And we left with a loss, but we left. The ones that stayed, I swear they've taken on a brutal nature. And they're gonna look. Here's something that I'm dealing with all the time, personally, and with Fran. You know, we're not decrepit, but I mean, we're gonna die someday. You know, and we're getting close. You know, one of us is gonna die before the other, I think. And when one of us dies and we're at the calling hours, what would it be like? I'd have to think from two ways. If I were my children coming in to see the surviving mate, or if it was the surviving mate seeing the children coming in at that point, would that be a sign of respect? Or would that be heartbreakingly cruel? In other words, if Fran died before me and I'm there and they come, and they wouldn't come any other time, but they only waited until Fran died before they'd see us. I can't think of the brutality and the hatefulness that is. Now, I don't think my kids say, you know, we're going to want to do something really hateful. I don't think they plan on that. But that's what it's working out to be. Because frankly, it would be heartbreaking to see them at that point. It would
Be
be
better if we
heartbreaking.
just stayed away.
Now, and if they choose to do that, it's like they're not thinking or they're not feeling. This is what we've all been put through. This is what they're being put through.
Well, it happens really slowly. It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It creeps up on you. I mean, before you. You know, I mean, I'm sure none of these Germans thought that they were going to be murdering an entire. You know, in the Holocaust, propaganda is like it's a slow kind of a thing. Before you know it, you're doing things you wouldn't normally do. But I don't know. It psychologically, when you're in that you're stuck in it, it's kind of. I mean, I did things that I never would have done.
Yeah.
You know, to family and
Keith. I did to my children.
Yep.
Because of what the society said. They said, If they're not responding, do everything you can, even if you have to sit on them.
Yeah.
And we did.
Sit on them. What do you mean?
The ends
Another-
justifies the means.
And it's like, oh my God. And it's like, yes, it means their lives. And you take on a nature, your dark nature, your shadow side. They knew how to do that. They knew how to tap in to a person's shadow.
Mhm.
And here we try to, deal with our shadow.
Yeah.
And here they're showing pictures of brutality and devastation and killing. And it's like, what are they doing this for? They're brutalizing. They expect people to become brutal. They know.
And you're not necessarily preparing them for the future because of the belief you have. I mean, what kind of career you need to point your child at? And now what kind of world do we live in where, capabilities are important?
The only thing I can think of is.
Well, I can wash windows, so.
Well, there you go.
Jay in the comments said, if someone is born in a North Korean camp, do they know anything else? Do they know anything about the world? And those of us that were born in, and even after those people get recruited, there's an isolation process that happens to where we're just not listening to anything else outside of this organization. We don't know of the other options when trying to leave and being a PIMO. So a lot of what keeps somebody in as a PIMO is simply naiveness, ignorance, that the mind, the indoctrination that we have only gives us so many options. And we still kind of carry some of that even after we leave,
Well, it's like people in prison for a long period of time are so institutionalized, they fear being real. Here comes parole. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Those of us that leave are, it's called institutional syndrome. And we get that same kind of thing.
I had that I'm going back to school and I'm finally moving on with my life somewhat, but the regression, you feel like you want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
And then because your brain is just wired for a certain kind of thing. It's all you've ever known. So what's comfortable is safe, and it's what you know. So yeah, it takes time, but I think that's why it's important to have these kind of forums and other ExJW groups and meet up and just be able to get the validation and really understand. But I have flashbacks and I have feelings that, triggers that happen, and my brain goes into this mode and I can't, it takes time to kind of analyze and go, oh, that's why I'm thinking like that. So
I have dreams frequently where I'm at a convention and I'm trying to get out and I can't find my way out. Or I can't find my son to get him out with me, or I get out but I can't find my car and I'm in a big city and I don't know which direction to go in. I can't remember where I put my car, but it's always me trying to get out and I can't get out. It really does feel like Hotel California.
Yeah.
Wow. Groundhog Day. Annie, I have a similar pattern of dreams in recent months. I'm stuck somewhere and I can't get out.
Yeah.
Really? It's really true.
It's fascinating because institutional syndrome, if you hear about people leaving prison after they've been in there for so long, when they try to assimilate into society at large, they have things like panic attacks. They get super anxious. It's very hard for them to function in the outside world. This happens to us as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses as well. We try to assimilate into society at large, and we're socially stunted to begin with, so we're total dorks, right? And then we try to function. We're doing socially inappropriate things. Plus, we're in these areas that we've never been in. It's super normal to have high anxiety, and it's very common to have panic attacks. I had a mini breakdown at 16 years old and was stuck in bed with panic attacks for 2 weeks. It was bizarre, but I can also remember after 1975, in November of 1978, was the Jonestown suicide massacre. But at that time, we only knew it to be a suicide. And that's back when newspapers used to be in this thing called a newspaper stand.
Yeah.
And you could see the front of a newspaper on the glass of the newspaper stand. And I'm looking at all these people laying on the green grass. They've all committed suicide. That's what's in my head. And I remember looking at them and going, I get it. I totally get it. I didn't have words for it. I was, but I knew exactly why they all committed suicide. I knew why they were all dead, but I didn't know how to explain it. See, in 75, I was 11. So 6, 7, 8. So I'm 12 or 13 at that time. And so, I was still young, but it was stuff that was connecting. And the first time I ever heard the term cult would be at the Kingdom Hall when they're talking about Jonestown. It's a cult, But I totally understood people talking like they couldn't figure out why they would do that. But I knew exactly why they would do that, because that's what we would have done if we were informed we had to do that. There was no other option but to do that. And what we find out later is that it was not only a suicide, it was a massacre. Okay, so those that tried to escape were shot.
Yeah,
okay?
that's true.
They rehearsed this, drinking the Flavor Aid for over 10 years. Like we do fire drills. You know how we do fire drills in school or whatever, a job or whatever. So they went through this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times before that day that they did do it. And that day that they did it, Jim Jones instructed them to go through that because Representative Ryan, I believe, from Northern California went there to go check things out. And he was leaving with some of the people that was part of this People's Temple was the name of that church, part of this group. And Jim Jones knew that if those people left, their secret would be revealed. And that's why we're not allowed to be spoken to after we leave. This whole shunning thing, they don't want the members, the followers to know what we have to share with them. So he had everything set up to where a big old truck, flatbed truck, showed up and shot all the people by the plane. So that guy, the senator, Ryan, was murdered. Okay. Some of the people that were part of the cult of People's Temple survived. And some of the people with the news crew survived. But they've all played, the ones that were alive played dead. But it was, if you look into it, you'll find that there's a lot of things that resemble basically any other cult.
It's very telling. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just thinking another part of that story was as things led up to that time, everybody who actually committed suicide, obeying the pattern of how they were groomed, believed in the cause. They believed in it all the way. They were like, they went all the way out there to the jungle in difficult circumstances and believed in the dream of the cult leader. So they were set up for it.
I would have joined People's Temple if I was, of age at that time. It was inclusive. It was, civil rights, all these different nationalities, like we learned in the organization to be, with all these different cultures, and that's the way it was going to be in paradise. And, other things too. It was very progressive, and it was a very amazing church. But when you find out the things he was doing behind the scenes, the higher up you get in the echelons, you find out they literally used to drug people and keep them in like this barracks area and keep them like in a coma and stuff because they were talking too much.
When Joffrey Jackson was being interviewed, I think there was one specific moment where the lawyer led him to these questions, basically saying, is this a captive organization? And so he had a bunch of questions. I'm trying to remember the name of the lawyer, but is it Angus?
Angus Stewart.
Angus Stewart.
Angus Stewart. He's my boyfriend. Yes.
I love that guy. And so he's like just literally just grilling Joffrey. And then he came to a point where he said, do you see how someone who's been abused you know, they can't leave. I mean, they don't want to be a part of it, but they will still want their family and their friends. And something to the effect that it was a captive organization, and he thought, oh no, that's not how it is. And so, yeah, it's an interesting concept because you really can't leave without being punished, and then you have the existential dread that's been indoctrinated into you that God or whatever is going to destroy you, and you have this fear of Armageddon still in your brain, even though you know it's illogical and it's all been, these guys are liars. But it's a very, your brain is captive. What did Ray called it, a captive of concepts or something like that. So
Yeah.
you don't. It
Remember
takes time to set
remember the
yourself. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was saying, remember the part two where you're talking about, and Angus Stewart led him to the point where he said, would you be able to take back to the governing body any consideration of adjusting or changing the
Right.
shunning policy? And he did not explain or do anything. He said, no. That's what his answer was. Direct. No. That's off. We need that one.
Yeah.
So will you stop
So,
shunning people? No.
the same conversation is taking place
Hello?
with other
Hi.
Christian members of Christian church. In other words, members of Christianity are
I did miss my
speaking
flight.
about how Christianity really, rather than a force of peace, really has been more brutalizing. It's really not a religion of love. It's a religion of brutality. And this idea about love is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, God of love, when the people really are accessible and ready for warfare, which is what the Christian faith was designed for the government. It was designed to promote and to
You guys,
groom
as you were being raised,
people,
about
people who
I
would
just
be
feel like it's coming back
ready for warfare. And what we're talking about is really why it was developed. It was so that people could be brutal, not so that they would be loving. Because if they were loving, we would talk about how everybody's so loving. They're not. They're not loving. It's a brutal society. It's a Christian society. It's a brutal society.
It's a spiritual tyranny. It's actually what it is, a spiritual tyranny. And tyrants don't show their hand. They don't have to tell you what they're doing to you.
No, it's been a trick. And
the best way to have a good man is to raise a good man. And I got to be part of that. Thank you.
Linda.
Thank you.
And people are waking up to that in general, not just the witnesses. There's so many people coming out of Christianity realizing that it's no different than what the witnesses are talking about. The brutality, the lack of love.
We talked about 75. We talked about the brutality now. We talked about Armageddon. Now, some of the younger ones, they don't know anything about that, and they really don't care about that. But, like, one of the big issues now, and Kristen mentioned it in the comment, and it's reason why we left, is because we found out about the hidden child sexual abuse, the pedophiles. I mean, that was a big one. And that's still going on today, and that's why a lot of people are leaving. So, I mean, that's another point why there's PIMOs.
I have to go, you guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Keith.
you, Keith.
Thank
Love
you.
you.
Have a good day. Good night.
Love you, Keith.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Yeah, so, for the young ones that are leaving, or they just don't want to be part of it anymore. They see the nonsense of it. And that's what JT brought out. Young ones, they want to leave. They want to tell their parents they don't believe it anymore. But, boy, if they leave, there's going to be a lot of problems because they can't support themselves. They may end up homeless, jobless. So what would we say to them? I know JT said one of the things was breadcrumbs. Just put breadcrumbs. Just give them a little thing here and there, but don't disclose everything.
Yeah, I remember that being discussed once before, and they said if you're a young person and you just can't leave, then make a plan for when you can and prepare for that. Get yourself a job, save up, try to get a car so you can be independent. And so when you can leave, then you can leave because you're not dependent on your family anymore, because that doesn't account for the shunning that you're going to have to endure. But if you can't stay in, then make a plan for exiting.
And Annie, I think exactly that is happening. And I think what we're seeing, we're living through a separation. I think we're living through a separation of ones who are rejecting the watchtower slavery and ones who are hanging on to it. I mean, they want the security of that organization. For them, it's security. They don't care about honesty or dishonesty. They care about security. They care about knowing that, oh yeah, we got our friends in one place and I don't have to work at having friends. I just have to be there and do what I'm supposed to and I'll get automatic friends. I can lie a lot. I can put on a face. I got no problem with that. I think this is great. They know that. There's a whole group of people like that. And somehow they're going to that organization is going to figure out how to use people who are willing to be slaves. They're going to figure out a new way to use them. They will. They will.
Just want to welcome Steph. Are we cooking with Steph again?
Well, leftovers this time.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Steph.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. We're talking about being PIMO and what it's like to be PIMO and
consequences.
Benefits and the risks.
Yeah, it's I was listening to a little bit. I can understand when you were talking about the kids, like if when you're on your deathbed or somebody, your spouse dies, like how are you going to react if the kids come around? Because as you know, my kids don't talk to me either. So I don't know. I've been very conflicted about that.
I would not want to see them. I don't know how they, if they had a heart, how they would be able to present themselves. If they were able to, it's like they're heartless. They would be heartless. Yeah. In which case, that's where, Pasta Babe frequently talks about no contact, having no contact, because it's of toxic relations. That's totally understandable. I get it. I do get it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call it shunning. We call it going no contact.
It is not the same thing. It's two different things.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
It's two different things. Yeah. When we leave something toxic.
I would never shun, but I see the need for going no contact.
Right. We are removing ourselves out of a abusive or toxic relationship. That's going no contact. But within this organization, the intention of shunning is intentionally to be punishing.
Yeah. This is even, in fact, going no contact is even an attempt to consider the health of the other party, because they're not smart enough to avoid the toxic relationship. Someone has to be smart enough to prevent that.
When we start learning about narcissistic characteristics, which is also the characteristic of cult leaders and destructive cults, that helps us to realize we're in a toxic relationship or family. But being born in to an organization like this, it's like being born into slavery. I mean, it's not compared to the actual same thing as, those that have been true slaves, but it is a form of oppression and slavery. They tell us
it's grooming slaves. They are grooming slaves, flat out.
And the archaic word for apostasy or apostate is, what is it? It's like I just went blank. Where, a slave.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Running away, runaway slave. That's what it is. Runaway slave.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys.
So, I
Apostate,
mean,
archaic form is runaway slave. Yeah.
I commend everybody for taking the risk and having the courage to avoid this enslavement. You're brave, you're noble, you're suffering loss. We're all suffering loss, but we're standing up for what's good and for what's right. And if nothing else, I mean, that's an example to the ones who are remaining in, so that they see something that they could come to.
There's no reason to escape something if you don't realize you're a slave to it.
This is a separation. It's going to separate people, hearts. Not all hearts are the same. That Watchtower Society, I believe, knows how to separate hearts. They know how to extract the narcissists and the slaves, and to eject the ones like us.
Well, they're trained, especially the men within this organization. They're all trained to be many me's or many narcissists. The longer they're in,
well, there have been
the more,
so many circumstances in history, so many different governmental regimes that have led the way.
And this might be controversial, but what happened on January 6th, when the people showed up at the Capitol, they were true believers in what they were doing, and that kind of fervor and passion, they were there with a mission, and I relate that to, that's not their everyday behavior, okay? No. But they had this mission in mind, and sometimes people do things that they ordinarily would not ever do if they weren't under the influence of, a group or a person, or, you know what I'm saying? And that's how I view January 6th. Some people don't consider that the same way, but I do.
It's like a gang mentality.
Oh, mob mentality, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we all get worked up off of each other, and it was pretty intense, Yeah.
So a delusional person doesn't know they're delusional. I mean, when you're talking to somebody who has delusions of grandeur, the schizophrenia type people, not that it has to be that extreme, but you got to realize, actually, because I've dealt with that in the family, they do not know their perceptions are gone. And a great illustration of that is the movie with Russell Crowe, A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
And you watch the movie, and if you're not careful, you'll think that there's these characters around him that he's seeing, and you're seeing too in the video. And it doesn't. If you're sharp toward the end, you finally go, "Oh, they're not really there. Those characters are all in his mind." So it's real to them. So you can't convince them otherwise. So it's a very similar pattern when you're in a cult bubble.
Yeah. What a life. What a life.
Check that movie out, A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
I have that movie. I've watched it several times. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
We're going to take make a change of pace here, and we've got a video. Thank you for all your comments too, by the way, folks.
We appreciate it.
I recognize the value of what you're giving. This is from Jason Bashir's Archaics. See if there's information in there that fills in the blanks of your information.
It's about 10 minutes, so hang in there.
Oh, it's interesting. In fact, there's so much more to it that you can look at on your own.
Of the phoenix in the written record, the written historical record, are in Akkadian cuneiform tablets that are translations of older Sumerian tablets, though we do not have the Sumerian originals. Those Akkadian tablets have notations because they were being studied when when a later culture had come in and were putting together what were known as the Amorite syllabaries. In the Amorite syllabaries, we find references to the Apen and Pin deity. In the earliest Egyptian hieroglyphic records, we have references to the Pin deity, PN God or PN deity in the ancient times that bathed the world in blood. It is the exact same thing as the Akkadian Apen. They're no different. This is an object like a fiery celestial dragon in the sky that appeared, that destroyed cities and changed the topography of the earth. It was originally called the Apen and Pin deity, and later Phoenix. In the Druidic, it was called Think. In the ancient Egyptian, it was called Naph or Neph. This might be the origin of Nephilim, the children of Typhon, the phoenix, Ophion, people of the serpent. The phoenix appears in many different ways, like the kraken when the ocean is being all kinds of. In ancient China, it was Feng. Feng was the great celestial red dragon. It was the phoenix of ancient China. The Feng is the origin of Feng Shui. Feng Shui is the art of changing the landscape to maximize its potential as in both aesthetics and utilitarianism. Feng Shui is the ultimate origin of Feng Shui. The changing of the landscape is from the phoenix, which every time it appears, it alters the landscape. It's like a Dark City scenario from 1998 when different areas suffer subsidence and they sink. Other areas are uplifted and other areas suffer things like the Deccan traps in India, where hundreds or thousands of square miles are resurfaced with volcanic materials and everything underneath them is lost forever. Coastlines change and all the maps and all the cartography has to change to allow for this. We have rapid appearance of 2-mile high ice caps on the Arctic and the Antarctic, and then we have whole centuries where the sun is never seen. Vapor canopies appear, which completely melts all the ice from the Arctic and the Antarctic. During those periods, cartographers go in and they map the whole areas. Is this speculative? Hell no. We have the actual maps from the 15th, 16th, 17th century that show Antarctica is completely ice-free. No, Graham Hancock, I don't even want to say what I really want to say, but Graham Hancock's idea that these are maps that are copies of 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 copies ad nauseum, going all the way back to Civilization X 10,800 BC is absolutely moronic. We don't even have any stone tablets that last that long, much less copies of copies of copies of copies of maps. No, Occam's razor mandates us to put those maps into their proper perspective. If we have maps of an ice-free Antarctica, then an ice-free Antarctica was very recent in history, and this changes everything. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing with all the alt history, alternative history, Tartaria research, because there is a genuine reset in the past. It was not the 1800s. It wasn't even the 1700s. And we're going to have to go back century by century by century until we hit that wall where the archaic material and data sets, which were irrefutable, actually come into contact with all these other guys' research. In a questionable century that we can all agree something happened for which we cannot explain. This is where this is going. Now, whether all these guys get on board or not, I don't even care. I don't. I'm doing this for my community so they can see what we have in the historical record and what we do not. So the Phoenix appears. How's my reel doing? So we have many historical references to the appearance of the Phoenix in ancient times. The very first appearance of the was really before the historical record. It's in the traditional record. 4309 BC, the Phoenix appears and ends a 930-year-old civilization. The Jews in Babylon in the 5th century misunderstood what they were reading. Adam was not a pronoun. Adam was a description of the race that was surviving on the surface world. This is common to almost every scholar who has studied Semitic antiquities knows. Babylonian word for mankind was Adamu. So Adamu, the Jews saw that and created the person of Adam. Well, the reason in Genesis Adam dies at 930 years is because the Jews totally misunderstood what they were reading. The older cuneiform reads that the Phoenix appeared in the 930th year. Total systemic reset. It's total destroyed everything. We have fragments of the story in the Gnostic Trimorphic Protenoi document, which talks about Phoenix as the destroyer, and that Phoenix is coming back in the last day, in the last days, and that Phoenix is the keeper of the calendar, and that Phoenix was designed to keep the archons in check. Some of this material is also in another Gnostic text called On the Origin of the World. That one is in the Nag Hammadi library. So it talks about we have this pre-Adamite destruction. They took a 930-year-old civilization that was wiped out in a cataclysm and created Adam, who was 930 years old. Recently, I showed you what they did with Ubar-Tutu. Ubar-Tutu and Lamech are the same. On the Babylonian Berosus king list, you have 10 kings before the flood. In the Jewish written book of Genesis, you have 10 patriarchs. Well, the ninth one, the father of Noah, the ninth one was Lamech, father of Noah. But in the Babylonian version, you have Ubar-Tutu, who is the father of the flood survivor Zusethra, however you say his name. They're both, the 10th one is both the flood survivor. Both of them built the ark to survive the flood. The ninth one in the list is the father. Lamech is one, Ubar-Tutu is the other. But the Jews in Babylon, when they were looking at Ubar-Tutu in the list, they noticed very quickly that Ubar-Tutu lived a certain amount of years, an impossible amount of years, something like 38,000 years. And the Jews knew instantly that's not true. So they divided it by 360 like you were supposed to do when you do Shar reckoning, and they came up with 777. Well, excuse me, they came up with 77.7 for the life of Ubar-Tutu, which makes absolute sense, perfect sense. A man can live 77.7 years. But in the Genesis record, Ubar-Tutu is Lamech. So they said that Lamech lived for 777 years. There are many, 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 many things that you can find in Genesis that can be shown exactly where the origin of the material was. Remember, the book of Genesis wasn't written by Moses. Moses never existed. That's a fairy tale. The Jews first came into contact with all this information when they were taken into captivity in the 5th century BC, and they were allowed to peruse the Babylonian temple libraries. This is where they got their information. This is where they wrote their texts. The Enuma Elish texts, the Karsag tablets, the Atrahasis, the Era Epos, the Kudur Lagomar texts, they're all older, way older than anything in the Old Testament. So we have the very first Phoenix appearance in the historical record is 3895 BC. Many of you know that date. I've showed it many times. I did not date that. I have showed in my Chronicon all the different sources by how we got that exact date as year one of the pre-flood world, the 1656 years of Genesis. I didn't date it. I never dated it. It just happens to be on the 138-year Phoenix timeline. But that's not my doing. It's my discovery. So, biblical chronologist Stephen Jones used the Assyrian eponyms, the Book of Jasher, Book of Jubilees, and the Old Testament, and came up with the fact that year one was 3895 BC. And by many other species of analysis, we derived that exact date for one, Annus Mundi. So Phoenix appears again in 2653 during the pre-flood world, and appears a third time in 2239 BC in the Great Flood. It's often called the Typhon flood. We're not going to go into a whole lot of details. Phoenix appears again in 1963. Every single date I'm giving you, the difference between these dates is always in multiples of 138. In the year 1963 BC, as recorded in the Ramayana, there's a temporary pole shift. Quakes and bodies of water moved. Then one of the greatest cataclysms known in the entire world, probably worse than the Great Flood, was 1687 BC, also on the 138-year timeline. This is the Ogygian deluge. I have 5 videos. That's how much data we have. I have 5 videos that are packed with information on just the Ogygian deluge. Archaics Academy has 3 whole courses just about this one date, 1687 BC. This was the entire Heliolithic maritime empire collapsed. 138 years later, 1549 BC, I did not date this. Historian Castleton did, but three suns showed in this were seen in the sky. Unusual storms. The sun darkened, and the Cyclades region of the Mediterranean was destroyed. 138 years later, we have 1411 BC. We have another temporary pole shift. The sun moves very erratically. A new star appears, meteoric fallout, red dust, red mud, red rain, red rivers, red oceans. All this happens during this period of time. This is when the Israelites are fighting the races of the giants in the valley of Rephaim and in Canaan. 138 years later is 1273 BC, and Atreus wins over the throne of Mycenae, of ancient Argos, because he was an astronomer, and he predicted the darkening of the sun, not an eclipse. Do not confuse the Phoenix phenomenon with the moon passing before the sun. In the Phoenix phenomenon, the sun goes dark, and the moon becomes red as blood. And red dust, red mud, and red rain fall like storms all over the earth. Some of it is so thick, it literally blankets whole civilizations. So 1273 incident of Atreus was mentioned of Socrates and Archilochus. Seneca mentioned it in Thyestes. Euripides mentioned it in Electra. It's also mentioned in the cuneiform stone tablet records of King Merciless II of Hatti. This is the Hittites in Anatolia. It was just 138 years later that Atlantis fell in 1135 BC as the Tuatha Danann were invading Ireland and defeating the race of Furbolgs. As the sun darkened and the sea receded on several coastlines, the sea receded, and then tsunamis came and wiped out coastal cities. 1135 BC begins the 300-year Mediterranean Dark Age. It's called the Mediterranean Dark Age, but it was really a dark age around the entire world. Literacy plummeted, and the very first literary records that appeared was 300 years later, and they're highly cartoonish and very fantastic mythological records of actual historical events, known as Homer's Odyssey, Homer's Iliad, the whole epic of Jason and the Argonauts, that voyage, the legends of the Seven against Thebes, and the writings of Theognis and the writings of Hesiod, works and days. So these are the first writings, and it's after a 300-year dark age that literacy starts returning. But when it does, it's highly mythological. It's very different than what was preserved in the Minoan Linear B, Minoan Linear A. Both scripts were the result of Phoenix resets and the return of Phoenix again. and then the complete disappearance of Minoan linear B as it fragmented into the Phoenician Greek alphabet is all because of Phoenix resets and the ex post facto assemblage of data after these cataclysms by survivors who are just re-educating themselves with the facts. The entire history of the world is one of resets. In this period of time, they were getting reset every 138 years. So we have an interesting 138-year period. Was 997 BC. A large meteorite impact on North America created the Badlands. I don't know if that's true. This is in the scientific record. I don't know, but according to the scientists, something in 997 wiped out North America. Now, I've been to Meteor Crater, Arizona, and I don't believe for a second a meteorite did that. I believe that that's more evidence of the book of Genesis, where it says the fountains of the great deep issued forth. It looks just like a gigantic geyser to me, a caldera, where intense subsurface pressure just released and that whole area sunk in. The exact same thing that we have with the Reichak structure in the Sahara Desert, which used to be under salt water. That's why it's a series of salt domes. Even someone I vehemently disagree with on many issues, Randall Carlson, he happens to be a geologist, and he too understands that the Reichak structure is just a series of salt domes. It was created underwater under high pressure. That's why it has those rings. Jimmy Corsetti knows he's wrong, but it gave him his bread and butter. He became who he is today, being on Joe Rogan and all this stuff, because he promoted this lie and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And a bunch of dumbass, gullible people in the public who are uneducated and have no idea how to separate fact from fiction fell for it. And now a whole bunch of people believe Atlantis was in the Sahara Desert. Absolute crap. Please pass on my ongoing, continue 2 years now, calling Jimmy Corsetti out to debate these issues. That man's running, and for good reason. He would be publicly embarrassed by the assemblage of facts that show that that's a geological structure and it's not Atlantis. Tangent number 1 today. So we continue on. In 997, we also have really interesting, dated to that period, interesting psalms that are also describing Phoenix phenomenon events, but we're not going to get into those. So you need to watch the videos. In the year 721 BC, we have a sun darkening episode that did not involve the moon, that was mentioned by many ancient authors during the early Roman monarchy. 721 was also the year that the 10 tribes of Israel vanished into the Assyrian frontiers when they were taken into captivity. We have the mentioning of this sun darkening in 721 in the Assyrian annals, in the Almagest, Plutarch, Ovid. Marcus Varro has a fantastic one. And when you read Marcus Varro, you realize, oh my God, this is not an eclipse. Whatever this was, it was amazing. A new star appeared. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. It became bigger than our.
I want to bring
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you,
Okay.
Steph. Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't want to belabor that. I get the impression.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, I was just getting some background noise. Just so anyone knows, just to give a heads up on Jason. Jason is what's called a chronologist. What he is, he's not historian, but he chronicles and puts into time frame events that go way back before we had access to history. In other words, this is the history books that the Vatican hid. They were tied up in old libraries that weren't used, but yet, in his case, he had access to them in a prison. And he was a nerd, absolute nerd. And he devours this stuff. He wrote books. If you saw the different books floating through there, he wrote those books on specifically the subject called the Phoenix. Now, if anyone's at all familiar with the Phoenix event, basically it's a celestial cataclysm that occurs every 138 years. It's something that brings some kind of rearrangement on the earth. It either brings great floods, earthquakes, dust and mud, and these things. There are actual records of all these events. They're old records, and there are many records that our history that we've had access to. Our U.S. history hasn't provided it for us. The government knows. The government knows that there have been these cataclysms every 138 years, like clockwork.
The last one was in 1902.
They're clockwork.
Yeah.
They're not acts of God.
And what was 1902?
That was the last reset, every 138 years. So there's things called the archons. I don't know if you've ever heard of the archons, but they're like the bad guys. And this reset keeps these archons in check.
In other words, we have no chance against the powers that be. We don't.
Yeah.
I know some want to take political action, and I understand that. But those in power are going to do exactly what they want. Mm-hmm. They're not going to wait around for us to tell them what we want or don't want. They do what they want. This is the only thing that disrupts the plans of the elite, and it's done that every 138 years for how many years? A couple thousand years. I don't remember the numbers.
Yeah.
But so far back as we know in history. In fact, one of the events was Adam.
Mm-hmm. He mentioned that.
Adam was a reset man. He wasn't the first man. He was a reset man.
Oh, help me out here, please, for a minute. So he was in prison. Okay. He's a nerd. Okay. How did he get to these records that were at one time hidden at the Vatican? Because what I understand, that's virtually impossible. Why would he, while in prison, have access?
Yeah.
How did that connect?
The Texas library system dumped all their old books that they didn't want people to have access to. They dumped them into the prison system. Well, he became its librarian.
Okay, but how did Texas Library get a hold of these hidden documents from the
They're old books.
Vatican?
They're old.
I get that they're old, but I need a connection from Vatican to Texas Library.
Well, maybe the Vatican has the same type of books for all I know. I don't know.
Okay.
All I know is these are books that are written before 1903.
Oh, okay.
These are books that weren't written. They weren't written into our history that we had access to. They didn't give us that history. No, they were previous to what was given to us by Rockefeller and Carnegie or whoever else gave us our education system.
Okay, so Jimmy said, are you saying that we have no power at all?
Oh, you got power. Of course you got power.
But there's someone over all the power.
Well, of course you got power. But when you start complaining about things that you don't like, you find out you don't have that much power. The point is, there are people that have unlimited control of resources. We don't. They do. They just do. They own everything. It's theirs. They have it. What they want, they get. We don't even know who they are, but they're that wealthy.
And, someone mentioned anybody that is giving dates is, kind of, it sounds like Watchtower, right? But these dates are dates that he's researched and found out that there was a pattern.
Yeah.
And he, came up from all the research that he did. He made these charts, and then he realized, oh, all these things happen every 138 years.
He's a researcher.
So, I mean, you don't have to.
No,
You don't have to believe it.
This
Or,
information.
it's just
He's a
information.
researcher.
That's all.
And what it shows is that the old books that he researched told of these events. Well, they weren't. These events weren't included in our history books. They kept them out of our history books. See, the history books that we got in school were government history books. It's like it's the books that they wanted us to have. All the other stuff, they shoved it aside. They kept it aside. Well, there happened to have been the old stuff in the Texas library system, and they didn't want them around anymore, so they dumped them in the prison. They figured, who cares? It's a place to dump them. Well, he just happened to be someone who was a tremendous researcher. Oh, the way it was. And he knew that this was information that they know, the government knows, but we don't know.
Yeah.
And so they can do things without us knowing what's going to end up happening.
George Carlin. Joe, you remember George Carlin? He said in one of his deals, "It's a big club, and you ain't in."
Of course, and we don't need to be in the club, but it's see, they've literally hidden from us the past. And
Absolutely.
They've written stories. For example, the Bible is a story. They call it the greatest story ever told. It's a story. Well, the story of Adam is the story of a man, supposedly the very first man. Well, judge for yourself. But according to history, there were other men. There were other nations and other cultures. Why was the Bible written? The Bible was written as propaganda. It was a propaganda piece. It's the history that they wanted people to know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
And as Jehovah's Witnesses, we could never
Oh, yeah.
discuss these things
Oh,
or
my
having these open discussions. So we're not promoting one way or the other. We're just opening it up for discussion. And Jimmy asked another interesting question. He said, serious question, what relevance does this stuff have on our society and lives today?
Good question. Good question. It's nice to know where we came from, number one. It's nice to know what happened previously, because humans like to ask questions like, what is that over there, and why is what over there no longer there? What happened to it? Where were the people? Who are they? Et cetera. And there's so many questions that weren't answered. Well, they weren't answered because the history of them was locked up. In other words, they didn't give us access to them as children in school. We didn't. But now there is access to them on the internet. And in fact, that man had access to them, but he's not the only one, interestingly. He's not the only one that has access to all this ancient information. It's just that we didn't have access to it. Well, it's there now. I mean, if you're not interested in it, that's fine.
Yeah, you
But
don't have to
it's
be.
information. Not everybody likes information. It's too difficult to handle sometimes. You know, you don't know what to do with it. You know, Jimmy asked the question, what good is the information? What do you do with it? It's like, or how is it relevant? And that's a good question. It's relevant because it helps us, how do I want to say this? It helps us form decisions about who we are And what do I want to do with my life? It really does. It really reaches that deep. Because it makes the difference between, well, God is going to do such and such and such and such, or no, this other thing is, and oh, well, that changes things, then I'll rearrange my life this way.
Well, and it broadens the mind to other ideas of how, you know, mankind evolved and how society evolved, and you know, it just broadens the mind to hear of other ideas.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because I mean, I don't personally, I don't just want an idea of what our past was. I'm not just looking for a story of our background, which the Bible literally is a story. It's not accurate history. There's some history in there that's accurate, but it's not accurate history.
Yeah, a lot of it's not.
It doesn't. Besides, it doesn't go back very far either.
That's right.
Hey,
Rebecca
Joe.
said that just a second, excuse me. Rebecca said that her grandmother was born in 1894. I spoke with her in depth. That would be interesting to hear some of those stories.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Apostle Dude?
That was wild.
Oh, wild. I'm sorry. Wild.
Oh, no problem. I was just going to say, if Jimmy's still listening, something, it's sort of like with politics. You know how Ruby says that as witnesses, we couldn't discuss politics, basically.
Right.
So now we're free to. But something, Jimmy, once he goes down a hole, you know how he's admitted he goes down them deep rabbit holes. If you go start researching Phoenix, Jimmy would go deep on it, because here's the thing. There's a phoenix in just about all of ancient history. Look up the Egyptians, look up at the Romans. They've all got a fiery bird. It symbolizes both birth and rebirth, destruction. Sometimes, as they say, to make an omelet, you got to break an egg, right? So sometimes we see something that's bad, but later on, something really good comes. So we may be in that cycle. And I'm surprised Jimmy hadn't already researched this, Dylan, you know, with all the politics and Trump this and Biden that. But the Phoenix don't always symbolize something bad. It can be something very good. And each of the previous civilizations have pointed it out.
Yeah, it's really not. It's not politics. It's more like world events that the world had to deal with. So in other words, it really broadens our understanding of who we are, as opposed to narrowing us to just whether or not we're this or that or whatever. In other words, it really opens our minds up. It opens our connections up.
I just want to welcome Fallen Ashes. She also is having a cooking show. It looks like she's peeling.
It's like an onion to me.
An onion.
Hey guys, I'm making a Filipino dish.
Oh, sounds good.
Hi, Ashes.
Hey, what's up, Pasta Babe?
I want to say something. One of the mantras that Mr. Bashir's Jason it tries to instill in the people is no fear. No fear.
Yeah.
And to break free or die trying. In other words, freedom.
And he even gives an example. Let's say you go to the doctor, you've got symptoms, you find out that you have cancer. And he said, you know, okay, you hear the information, but rather than, okay, I'm going to die, he says, plan a year from now that you're going to go on a trip and you're going to act as if you don't have cancer. Now, that sounds crazy, I know, but it's absolutely what the mind can do, what the mind can overcome. And maybe you know people like that. For example, we know Celeste. We thought, okay, I don't mean to be morbid or anything, but we thought Celeste was going to die back in during the fall. And she's still alive. And what's keeping her going? She doesn't want to die. She's got cancer. She's got 2 lovely grandchildren that live with her and her daughter. And every day, she takes one day at a time. and the doctors told her she did not have, I don't know, maybe weeks to live, but she surpassed that.
Yeah,
So
the
anyway,
mind is a powerful thing, and I have heard that about just picturing yourself cancer free, and like you said, have like next year you're going somewhere and you're not even gonna have cancer. I've heard that is very powerful.
Yeah.
Because you can do the exact opposite to yourself and stress yourself into a situation where you're actually sickening yourself.
You're right.
Yeah.
So the point with Jason, interesting, the people that follow Jason, we call ourselves errands, ERRANTS, errands. Now, an errant means someone who is in error. In other words, you're not in line, buddy. Get in line.
Get with the plan.
Get with the plan. You're just not in line.
Yeah.
No, we're not in line. I'm not in line with what's going down with the government. I'm not in line with going down with religion. I'm really not.
We're errants in the Watchtower. All of us
Oh my
here
goodness, we're errants.
are errants to the Watchtower because we
Yeah.
did not want to go along with the program.
Yeah, so larger than XJWs, you are really all errants.
Mm-hmm.
And the point is, the information is information that was that well, it helps us to know what's going to happen. In other words, I'm not afraid of Armageddon because there is no Armageddon.
Right.
There's no Armageddon. They scared the daylights out of my kids, and so did I, and put the fear into them. And I regret that with my whole life.
And every time they hear about a war or what's going on in the Ukraine or anything,
this
it's
could be
got to be
it.
Armageddon.
And that
Armageddon right
stupid
around
society
the corner.
keeps doing that to
Yeah,
them.
that's fear-based.
That's stealing their life from them. That is fear.
Yeah.
This is
Okay.
no fear, preparation.
I'm reading Jimmy's comments because, it's important. He said, what's funny to me is when I mention things about today's news and events that go against the narrative, I get called a conspiracy theorist.
That's going to
But
happen.
this guy, Jason, says things and it's just accepted.
Yeah, there's a reason why. Because the people are open-minded. The people that follow him are errants. In other words, they're on track. They know that the government has lied to them their whole lives. They know that. They know religion has lied to them their whole lives. They're truth seekers, okay? They're looking for information, and they're not willing to. Most of them were against the vaccination.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate all your comments here. We really appreciate it. Gigi Gail says, I will never follow Jason. Sorry. He is into sorcery and mythology.
Oh my goodness, mythology. Yeah. Oh my goodness, mythology is, we live by mythology. I don't know, Gail. We're from that. That's our background. That's our background.
And
everyone here.
Ruby says he seems to have the gift of telling people what they want to hear, or people love the Harry Potter stories he tells. Oh, LOL. Nothing wrong with that. Just my opinion.
Let me tell you that.
Thank you, Ruby.
That man has an. If anyone likes the fairy tale stories, which I never liked, I never went for him. He is incredibly gifted at that. Incredibly gifted man. But he's a chronologist. That's all there is to it. He knows numbers. He knows numbers like no one knows numbers. And he knows how to lay it out and to help make decisions. It's like somebody had a massively messed up checkbook and he could make sense out of it so you can make good decisions for yourself.
And we deal with mythology every day. You can't have the months of the year on the.
It's our lives.
Well, I mean, name a month of the year that isn't named after a Greek god or a Roman god. Think about it. Always from January on up, or at least when
they've hidden that from
days
us.
of the week.
Call
The days of the
T-Top.
week, same
I'm not
thing,
a
Walt.
parent.
Yeah, it's days of the week. Where do we get Thursday? From Thor's Day, right? So if you want to escape mythology, you might as well say I'm gonna escape real life
Boy,
because we deal
boy,
with it every single day. That's why I was drawn to the Watchtower. Babylon the Great has fallen. The wild
see,
beast that came out of the ocean. To
see,
me, it bordered on mythology. And then what's bad is it was worse. It was all make believe.
see.
But here's the thing.
Here's the
Oh, go ahead.
reality. Like the Bible said, because the Bible's got some truth in it. It really does. The Bible says bad is good and good is bad. The Bible presented that. They present bad as good and they present good as bad. And that's everything that we're finding out. Everything we were told is a lie. Everything you were taught was a lie. The government doesn't do anything but lie to you. The only reason I say that is because my father worked for the government all his life, and that man couldn't stand the government, and yet he liked the paycheck. He said they lied. They're just terrible liars, and it bothered him. But he said they lie, and so we know that religion lies. They're immoral. We have experience with that. I've got experience with two religions: the Catholic religion, which are the biggest immoral people, and the Watchtower, which learned from them, and they're even worse than them, and they're all criminals. And here, yet they present themselves as righteous and authoritative, and enslave us if we listen to them, because they offer gifts. They offer prizes. They appeal to not only our fear, they appeal to our greed.
Got about 20 minutes
And
left.
it works.
Anyone want to weigh in?
It works. See, it works until you find out and realize, oh boy, I'm not falling for that trap again.
Yeah.
It's a snare. Good old Joe Rutherford, he red-pilled people. He said religion is a snare, a racket. He was not lying. he was not lying. And everything that we've seen, he bore out. It's true. It's just true. No.
And something else I'd like to point out, Joe, something else I'd like to point out is if Jimmy really wanted to go down another rabbit hole to tie everything together with what he's already researching, he knows about the Great Reset. That's in the news all about. But think of this, dealing with the Phoenix and everything. Go back to the Watchtower and look at some of their older publications. The Finnish mystery.
Yeah.
What was the emblem at the bottom on the cover? It was a winged disc. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the Phoenix? A winged fiery bird. All right. Now let's tie it into politics and the Great Reset. What was the Nazis, the German uniforms? What was on those soldiers? The medal that all of us have seen in movies and TV shows. What was that medal most of them had?
Yeah.
Did you remember the little winged medal on their uniforms? It
Well,
all ties together. It all goes back around.
Well, look, the Phoenix was the bird, the mascot bird of the United States before the eagle. It was the Phoenix. And
once you start researching that, you won't quit because it goes deep into the Phoenix.
Well, and the point is, they don't want people to know, because then we won't believe all their agenda, what they want to do, when we realize you guys are going to get stopped. Every 138 years, the elite gets stopped by a reset. It's a cataclysm. It's a physical thing. It's like one of the seasons. Only thing, it rearranges the earth. One of the things is it brought one of the floods. Then it brought the great flood, the
Noah flood?
Well, the Noah flood, that wasn't the biggest flood. Ogygian, the Ogygian flood, which was bigger. You didn't hear about these because they didn't want to tell you about these, but they're real, and they bear out in so many books. I mean, he's got more books than the library has, and he says if something is true, you're going to see it's true in so many different places. He wants evidence. That's what a chronologist needs, evidence. Otherwise, the numbers are worthless. At any rate, he's just one of the ones that we follow.
Wow, look at that. That looks beautiful, Fallen.
Yeah, wonderful.
Hello, Gail.
Hi. I'd like to make a comment to Widewall. We know that we're not stupid. We know mythology has a lot to do with history, and it goes way back to the Egyptians and even further than that. And we know it's rooted in everything. We know that the Nazis used it. We know that the Phoenix is used in a lot of different ways. It's mythology, and I don't care about it, and I don't follow it. I know it's all around us, but I really don't care about it. And that's my stance on the subject. And I know the government's lied to us. I know that we've been lied all our lives, but because of the internet, we all get to have our eyes opened because of thank God for the internet.
The beauty, Gail, is that you don't have to.
I know that. That's what I'm saying.
I know, and see, but yet you may feel compelled. But the more information you have, the better and more firm your decision can be.
Yeah, I'm a historian. I've done a lot of old history, and I love history, and it's a part of who we are. And we have to have history.
But the reality is our feelings won't change the facts.
Change what facts?
Well, in other words, you have objection to some of the things that you hear and are finding out. You don't like them, but that doesn't change them.
No, and I'm not going to stop living either because of it.
No, of course not. You're going to continue living the way you want to live.
And I'm not gonna freak out because you find out, oh geez, everybody was lying to us. The government's no good. This one's no good. You just have to. You can't control a lot of things. We just can't control. But you have to do the best you can and be positive and don't give out negative energy. Just be positive.
Here's a couple of things I work with.
Go ahead.
Truth is not altered by what we believe. All assertions are true or untrue. And before the show's over, I brought up some issues about tobacco last week and the spike virus. And before it's over, I got some notes about Dr. Anna to throw in. But Gail, I feel you. And my wife and I, we talk about this all the time. And it's just like the serenity prayer. Don't try to control what you can't, but do try to control what you can and know the difference.
Yeah, and here's another thing that they say. Take what you need and leave the rest behind.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it is fair enough. Some of the stuff you don't agree with, so you don't have to listen to it. That's why I have an on and off button. So you take what you need and you leave the rest behind. Some things are good that you want to learn and it's helpful, and other stuff, it's just plain garbage. So you just pass it off and shrug it off. Sorry, I'm not in a good mood tonight, so sorry.
The definition of mythology is a collection of myths or stories about a specific person, culture, religion, or any group with shared beliefs. So stories can be true and some stories can be false. So mythology, there's nothing wrong with mythology. It's just...
No, we didn't say there was.
It's a collection of myths or stories. Some could be true and some may not be.
We know that.
I'm not telling you, I'm just sharing that.
Mythology is part of our history. It goes all the way back, way before the Egyptians.
That's right.
And actually, a lot of mythology is fascinating.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes from, true stuff, and some just totally made up.
Yeah. That's where the power of discernment comes in, like Jesus said. Use the power of discernment.
Yeah. When they didn't understand, a lot of myths were created when they didn't know how things were created on the earth, or how things came about, or they didn't understand certain what's the word I want, like, I don't know, powers in what happens, or in nature. They came up with their own beliefs of how nature was formed, or why certain things do certain do certain things.
Well, it's sort of like Steph, how they tried to explain lightning, and each culture had their own version of it. The Zeus threw the lightning bolts, right? But if you go with Thor, Thor was the god of thunder, and he had lightning with his hammer and everything. So it's just mankind's attempt to explain stuff. Some believed it, some took it as real. Others knew, well, hey, it's just an attempt to explain something. It was all sometimes in fun. Some of them started believing it. I mean, that's how religions are formed.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's the way they tried to explain things. Yeah, yeah.
Where did Joe and Fran go?
I think they're having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, sometimes they drop off and then they come back in, and it's on accident.
There they come.
Okay,
Hello.
sorry about that.
I'm through.
Welcome back.
I'm through talking. Someone else talk.
We got about 10 minutes.
I have something to say.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Fallon.
I sent in the Operation Spotlight letter in to Donald Trump.
Oh,
good. Good.
Yeah,
Yay.
we did. Right on. Yeah, we got a return from one of them.
Just for a postcard.
Postcard.
But
Okay.
our letter went through. Does anyone need the letter? We've got copies. We can send
I
you
got
copies.
mine right here. I just haven't sent it off yet.
Oh, good job, Steph. Yep. Yeah, if anybody needs a copy of the letter,
Yeah,
we've
you
got
never
copies.
know. You just never know what effect that letter is having right now as we speak. There's someone who's had it. It's on their desk, and they read it, and they're planning. They're planning action on the basis of what they read.
Yeah, some friends have even put them in blue envelopes. You don't have to, but if you could put on the front of the envelope, Operation Spotlight.
Yeah.
Did you say a blue envelope?
Be red, white, or blue.
Oh, okay. I have blue envelopes. Cool. I'll do that.
Fran, your sound went out again. If you can hear me.
I was going to say that involving mythology, like the Native Americans, this where we're at. That's Turtle Island here in the U.S. So that's part of mythology, and they literally have their books that says, books of mythology, the Native teachings.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it looks like they got frozen again, huh?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there they go.
Boy, we're having trouble.
There you are.
You're
back.
Well,
Okay, you're back.
5
back.
minutes.
Welcome back.
Who wants to? 5 minutes. Who has something to say?
We were wondering if Jimmy wanted to do an update on Operation Spotlight, if he's still on.
Hey, I think 9 is the max we can have on here. It's good to see this many people. I'm going to drop out. I'm going to drop out and hope that he can get in here because I'd like to hear the update.
Oh, good.
But this,
good to see you guys.
Before I
Good to
go
hear you,
real quick,
Wild.
this is good to see everybody.
Nice,
Yeah.
to,
You too,
nice to
Wild.
see you. Hear you,
Thank you.
Wild.
Thank you for coming.
You
on,
too,
Wild.
Wild.
All right, Gail. I still got your Aid to Bible and Understanding book, Gail.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to get your address.
Yeah,
We
I'm
can
holding
give
it for
to
you because I know you'll
We'll
put
give
that
it
to
to
good
you,
use.
Gail.
And tell me how much. I'll pay for the postage. So.
Well, if I see you in real life, or like I told you, if you get down this way or anything, I'll meet you part way. Just Joe and Fran know where I live, and if you're anywhere in this area, I'll bring it to you. I'm trying to keep you in
Gosh,
good
you're
shape.
sweet. Okay.
All right, talk to you later. Love all
Okay.
y'all.
Thank you.
Love
Good night,
Love
Wild.
you.
Love you, Wild. And I just wanted to make a reminder statement that Ruby's going to have movie night after the show over in Discord.
Okay.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Today.
Discord. You're going to be on Pasta Bait?
She just left.
Whoops. Yeah, right after. Oh, here's Jimmy. Just wanted to let folks know right after our program, there's going to be a Discord movie. Ruby, I guess, is putting the movie on. Hi, Jimmy. Yeah, if you want to give us an update on the Operation Spotlight.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for asking. I did a video earlier today, put it out on my YouTube page with a huge update and spread it all over Facebook. This morning, I received a message from one of my Facebook friends, Nadine, who said that she had a connection to a guy that did the entertainment stuff for Trump. He basically was in charge of the New Year's Eve party at Mar-a-Lago, and he was in charge of working on Ivanka Trump's wedding. So the guy has, connections with Trump. He's met Trump and everything. His son, John McEntee Jr., he actually worked in the Trump administration in the first term. I'm not sure if he's doing it again in the second term. I have to look and check. Anyway, she went to high school. Oh, Lord, mad feedback. Okay. All right, let's try again. So anyway, she went to high school with John McEntee, and so she's been friends with him. So she said, Jimmy, here's his phone number. And I said, well, can you reach out to him, let him know that I'm going to call, and if it's okay if I call. And so she responded back with, he agreed. So I was a little nervous when I made the call, but I called him up, and we had a great conversation. And I read him exactly what we were trying to accomplish with Operation Spotlight. And he says, can I give you a suggestion? He says, one thing that I can say is that when my son was working for Trump, one of the best ways to get information to Trump is through senators. He said, so who's your highest ranking Republican official in North Carolina? I said, well, that'd be Tom Tillis and Ted Budd, the senators. He says, get the letters to them. I says, well, I have already started a campaign. We already have about 400 letters that have gone to the White House. And I was informed by the White House mail room that they get the letters where they need to go. So we have that. However, the update that I did today was asking folks to send the Operation Spotlight letter along with the cover sheet to your highest ranking Republican official in your state. Now, tomorrow, I'm sending my letters out to Ted Budd and Tom Tillis. And I know Washington State has already been taken care of. I got a message today that Pennsylvania has already been taken care of. So there are people getting this letter out to the senators. So that was huge that I was able to talk with this guy today. And he gave me some really good advice. So, yeah, that's...
Can we do both? Can we send letters to both then?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, for the folks that are outside of the United States, it just makes sense for them just to send their letter straight to the White House. That's not changing. The only addition, this is an addition, is to get the letters to the senators, which we were going to do anyway, and that's why we created the cover letter anyway. But for this guy to say, yeah, Jimmy, that's a good way to go. I was like, well, hell yeah, we already got a cover letter ready to go. We've already mentioned that we were going to send it to senators and congressmen and AGs and all that. So he just confirmed an action that we were going to take anyway. So it's pretty cool. So my letters are going out tomorrow to my senators.
I'll send mine to the California.
Ours will too, Jimmy.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Glad to know it.
And Ruby. Hi, Ruby.
Hey guys, yeah, just wanted to hey. Yeah, just wanted to give everybody a quick reminder that we're going to be doing a movie night on Discord right after Joe and Fran's show. So if anybody wants to join us, we're going to be watching John Wick 4. So yeah, if anybody wants to join, we're going to start hanging out on Discord.
Discord. Good.
I'm
Great.
not on. I'll probably have
Bring the popcorn.
I had a question for Joe, and this is not to start anything or whatever. When I have a debate with somebody or whatever, I like to ask questions and see what the answers of that could be. So, Joe, if you don't mind, you mentioned that this whole Phoenix thing happens every 138 years, and that the last time it happened was in 1902. And you said that during these Phoenixes, when this happened, these cataclysmic things happen, that the elite are stopped. Is that correct?
That's the purpose of. That's what it does. I mean, to one extent or another.
Okay, so my question.
It upsets their activities.
Okay, all right, that's fair. So my question is, how are the elites stopped in 1902?
Good question.
And the reason I ask that is because the creation of the Federal Reserve happened in 1913, completely unconstitutional. Then you had the progressive income tax come into play, and then you had World War I start in 1914. So if they were stopped in 1902, how did all that stuff transpire?
They restart.
They have a reset.
They reset, Jimmy.
And also, with the Phoenix event, it doesn't necessarily affect the whole world. Okay, it could be just
a portion of
the world. But there's a reset. There's a reset.
So they weren't stopped then, right? If they just
it upsets their plans.
Yeah.
And to one extent or another, it upsets their plans.
Because
and it forces a reset.
Yeah, if the elite weren't stopped, things would just keep getting worse and worse and worse.
Well, like things are getting now, they're getting out of control. It's like, so it's almost like a natural Earth type of situation.
I don't know what's worse than a world war. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. That's all I'm saying.
It's not a world war. It's not a war.
No, I'm talking about 1914. Because the last one was in. Yeah, because the last one. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That was after, Jimmy. This reset.
Yeah, I know, but if it happened in 1902, it just seems to me, looking through history and everything, that they had been planning to do a Federal Reserve They wanted to do it before. That's why they shot McKinley. So they still accomplished what they were trying to do even after 1902. So I'm just trying to make sense on how they were stopped, because what they were planning still came to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's just my thinking.
I'm sure they had to make some concessions and some changes.
Yeah, good thinking.
Right.
All right, that's fair. I just wanted to catch that out.
I'll be honest with you. If you want information on it, Jason's got it. He's got it. He truly does. He just has. In fact, he did a year-by-year review of events that led up to 1902. Yeah.
I did like one comment we saw that I saw in the chat. You know, the person, I think it was Shaq, that said it, something about not trusting chronologist because, well, isn't that what Taz Russell did? Didn't he have chronological stuff and everybody believed him? It was just, I like a good debate is all I'm saying.
Well, see, rather than trust any one thing, you just have to scour all the information.
Oh, I agree with that.
I mean, you can't rely on just one, for goodness sakes. But I must admit, if someone is offering information, it has to be considered.
I agree with that, because I share a a lot of information, so that, and I get questioned on it. So, and that's fine. I don't care. But
Well, you probably know, Jimmy, that 2020 was predicted.
oh yeah, all that stuff was predicted. All that was planned.
And we saw it in the Olympics back in 2014.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's that predictive program. That's that predictive programming that they do.
Yeah. So there's so much out there.
Oh
Just
yeah.
try to have an open mind, and we appreciate, all the research
Yeah,
you do.
I am open to all information. I'm not focused on any one type of information.
See, one thing that I learned when talking with John, because me and John, we butted heads a lot in 2020. But one thing that I learned was to, when you ask questions, you ask questions about things and have a mutually respectful conversation. There's nothing wrong with that. He always played devil's advocate with me. He'd be like, well, Jimmy, if this is the case, why did this happen? And it actually caused me to make sure that what I tell him, I have facts, data, and evidence to back it up.
Yeah, see, I'm more like a messenger rather than the source.
I think.
Okay, that's fair.
And I just want to say one thing in closing here, if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
We're not telling anybody what to believe, what's right or whatever. We're just sharing information that we find interesting along the way.
Yeah, I get that.
That's
I get
it.
that.
So we thank you all for tuning in with us as we explore wherever Joe and Fran want to take us, just to start conversations. We need some reason to be here every Wednesday night. So
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
appreciate everybody's feedback. We do.
Thank you, my good wife. Good comment, my good wife.
And
I have a question. Can I ask Jimmy a question before we hang up?
You get one, gal. One. Make it good.
It's just
Go.
one. Don't worry. Jimmy.
Yeah.
Do you have an estimate on how many letters have been sent out so far?
My estimate right now would be right around 400.
That's it?
That's just what people have, messages that have gotten back to me, comments that I've seen on YouTube. That's just a rough estimate of probably what I can completely verify, probably about 400.
Okay, and we have till March 1st, you said?
Yeah, my whole thinking on that is, like I said, I basically wanted to overwhelm the White House mailroom. Okay. And I figured if we get everything in by March 1st, that's a lot of letters going in 1 month. Now if people have to send it in after March 1st, that's fine. We can keep this going because, like I said, we're going to be sending it to the senators. And the next step is, thanks to Quinn, he's got an insert that he's created that we're going to end up sending to the FBI after Kash Patel is confirmed.
Oh, wow. All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to do that too.
All right.
Jimmy, I have a question.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good show tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for making it.
Thank you,
Great.
Shauna.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, we're good. We're going to wrap this thing now. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Look
Yes.
forward to
Love
seeing
you.
you guys
Thank
next
you all.
Wednesday. Have a
Okay,
great week.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Love you.
In making friends. But it's